Chapter 20. Fu Yunruo brought the child back to the old house. Aunt Mai and Uncle Guo also followed. Uncle Mai was also in the courtyard. Obviously, he was also very concerned about Wen. However, Wen was now asleep, so everyone did not communicate much. They lowered their voices and said a few words. Aunt Mai was busy and even asked Fu Yunruo to quickly enter the room. Put Wen on the bed. The little guy was not light. Her hands would be very sore and tired if she carried him all the time. Moreover, it was cold outside and it was not good to be exposed to the wind. Fu Yunruo responded and quickly entered the room. She bent down and carefully placed Wen, who had cried himself to sleep, on the bed. As soon as her hand left his body, he did not seem to feel the familiar warmth. His eyes were still tightly shut, and he let out a cry. Fu Yunruo quickly lay down and hugged Wen into her arms. She hummed a nursery rhyme and gently comforted him. Wen quickly calmed down. He leaned against Fu Yunruo and gripped her clothes tightly with his small hands. Not long after, Aunt Mai walked in with a bowl of fragrant meat porridge in her hands. She said in a low voice, "This is meat porridge made by the old man. Yunruo, have some." Fu Yunruo did not have much of an appetite, but when she smelled the rich fragrance of meat, her stomach started to growl. She had not eaten anything since last night and was already famished. "Okay." Fu Yunruo moved her body slightly and sat up. She caressed Wen with her hand first. After making sure that she did not wake him up, she thanked Aunt Mai softly. "Thank you, Aunt Mai. Uncle Mai has also worked hard." Fu Yunruo took the porcelain bowl and stirred it with a porcelain spoon. Then, she scooped it up and put it into her mouth. The temperature of the meat porridge was just right, and it was very fragrant in her mouth. She quickly finished the entire bowl, and a warm feeling spread from her stomach to the outside. Aunt Mai smiled as she watched her finish eating. She took the empty porcelain bowl and said gently, "Yunruo, sleep with Wen for a while. You didn't rest well last night, right? Rest well." Fu Yun had not slept for almost the entire night and was indeed physically and mentally exhausted. She responded softly and watched Aunt Mai walk out softly. She carefully closed the door before lying down and closing her eyes. She hugged Wen and fell asleep. Perhaps it was because she was familiar with the environment, but this time, Fu Yun did not sleep uneasily. She did not wake up, but she did not sleep for long. The first thing she did when she woke up was to see Wen in her arms. Wen was sleeping soundly this time. If Fu Yun pressed her forehead against Wen's small forehead, her body temperature would not be high. When she used her hand to check under her small nose, her breath would not be so hot. Fu Yun calmed herself down. Fortunately, she did not have a fever. She heard some voices outside. It seemed like Aunt Mai and Uncle Mai were talking. She felt much better now. She wanted to go out and take a look, but she was worried about Wen, so she didn't go out. Not long after, Wen half opened his eyes in a daze. His listless eyelids opened and closed. Seeing this, Fu Yun knew that he was about to wake up. She hurriedly carried him and quickly walked out. Wen's consciousness was still half asleep. He placed his hands on Fu Yun's shoulders and laid his head on her shoulders. He was drowsy. A moment later, he let out a sob. His instincts made him want to cry uncontrollably. Wen, we're home. Quick, look who's here." Fu Yun gently patted Wen's back and spoke softly. The moment Wen opened his eyes, he saw the familiar furnishings. He stopped crying and looked around with his red and swollen eyes. The familiar furnishings made him quiet down for a moment. Fu Yun was about to heave a sigh of relief. Then she saw Wen open his mouth and was about to cry in the next second. Wen couldn't control it at all. His consciousness, his body, from the inside out, were enveloped by a huge sadness. He was still a child and couldn't control his emotions like an adult. Even if his heart was full of holes, he could still act as if nothing had happened. "Ayo, whose sweetheart is this? His little nose and face are as red as a monkey's but from crying." Aunt Mai's tone was rhythmic. Uncle Mai also walked over. "Come, Wen, look over here. Grandpa made you a little toy." The handmade wooden horse was lifelike. Uncle Mai said as he spun the wooden horse in his hand. Look, the wooden horse is running. Run, run, run. Ayo, it runs so fast. Uncle Gu said, You old man, how is this fast? You're making a joke out of yourself. Don't listen to your grandpa Gu. Our wooden horse is running really fast. When, Grandma made a little puppy for you. It's so chubby and cute. It can even bark to greet when. It can say, when baby, how are you? My name is Wang Wang. What's your name? Uncle Mai, Aunt Mai, and Uncle Gu, the three elderly people, did all kinds of things in order to coax when. Kai Wen cried and hiccuped. After all, he still had the instincts of a child. Kai Wen was immediately attracted by this exaggerated performance. He couldn't take his eyes off it and even forgot to cry. Fu Yun, who had been carrying Wen, saw this and slowly relaxed. He was finally coaxed. Then Fu Yun smiled and joined in the coaxing of the baby. Baby, do you like it? Grandpa and Grandma made it for baby. Grandpa and Grandma are so good to baby. Baby, do you like a little wooden horse or a little puppy? When heard this voice, he turned his head and saw Fu Yun. He was instantly stunned and looked at her without blinking for a long time. Then, his eyes slowly filled with tears. Fu Yun blinked and was also stunned. Why was he crying again? What? Ah! An earth-shattering cry sounded, but it was not Wen's cry, but Fu Yun's. Wen hiccuped and looked at Fu Yun, who was crying loudly, in a daze. Tears still hung at the corners of his eyes. Boo-hoo! Baby, don't you love Mommy anymore? Why do you cry when you see Mommy? Mommy is so sad. Baby, don't you love me anymore? Wah! Boo-hoo! Baby doesn't love Mommy anymore. Fu Yun was sad. Was it because she neglected him and caused him to fall ill, so he cried in protest when he saw her? Would Baby always remember it in his heart? Would it be useless no matter how she tried to make up for it? Baby, I'm sorry. Don't be angry with Mommy. Kai Wen was anxious. He did not care about crying and quickly put his little hand under his eyes, trying to stop her tears. Fart. No. It's like. Don't cry. Kai Wen spouted out word by word. He had spoken more words than he had in the past month. Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. Fu Yun was anxiously coaxed by her son for a long time. Then, her tears turned into laughter and she pressed her forehead against his. Mommy loves Baby too. Mommy will grow up with Baby until you grow up and don't need Mommy anymore. Yes. How could he not want her? Even if he was 70 or 80 years old, he still wanted Mommy. Really? Baby will always love Mommy, right? Yes. Mommy will always love Baby too. I love Baby the most. Kai Wen reached out to hug both sides of her face and took the initiative to rub his face against hers. He was sorry. He should not have misunderstood. He should not have resisted her existence and held a grudge against her. This woman was the one who gave him life. She was the one who brought him into this world and gave him her wholehearted love. How could he doubt someone who loved him so deeply? I'm sorry. I was wrong. Kai Wen felt the unerasable sadness in his heart dissipating. When it completely disappeared, his mood suddenly became much better. He took the initiative to rub his face against her cold, crying face. Mommy, Mommy. His expression and tone were full of attachment. It was only at this moment that he completely accepted this woman's existence. This was his mother. Kai Wen revealed a pure and satisfied smile. It was like a ray of light that tore through the night. It became brighter and hotter, dispelling the boundless darkness and bringing warmth. Fu Yun's heart swelled and warmed. She could not help but smile. Her voice was as sweet as sugar. Uncle Mai, his wife, and Uncle Gu looked at the mother and son from the side, full of gratification. Perhaps it was because he had cried so much previously, or perhaps it was because Fu Yun was done crying, but Wen stopped wailing and quieted down. Perhaps it was because staying in a familiar environment was really useful. Wen did not have a fever after that. It was just that he was still a little listless. Moreover, because of his illness, he was even more dependent on Fu Yun. Only by sticking to her would his heart feel at ease. But if Fu Yun did not have the strength to carry him all day long, he could not bear to let her tire herself out. In the end, he was carried by Fu Yun wherever she went. Kai Wen lay on her back quietly, his little face rubbed against her from time to time, sniffing the familiar, comfortable, and clean fragrance. This was his mother. Kai Wen already knew that not only did he have the memories of his previous life, but his mother also came back from the future. She brought him to live in the countryside to avoid the cause of her death. Perhaps from the moment they came back, everything had changed. But no matter whether it had changed or not, Kai Wen secretly decided that he would definitely protect his mother. No matter who it was, no one could hurt his mother. Kai Wen did not know if he should tell her that he also had the memories of the future. He was worried that if he told her, she would no longer treat him as a child and protect him wholeheartedly. Instead, she would treat him as an adult. Kai Wen thought that he would rather not have those memories. He would rather be a pure child. He would cry when he wanted to cry, laugh when he wanted to laugh, be carefree, and be able to have fun with the people closest to him without restraint. He used to scoff at those children who pestered their parents and acted spoiled and unreasonable. He was very disgusted. But deep down, he was actually envious and even jealous. Only children who were doted on had the right to be willful. Now, he had. He was doted on. The director was wrong. He was not abandoned by his parents and thrown into the orphanage. His mother loved him very, very much. If he could do it all over again, he would enjoy it and be a real child. In his previous life, the heavens did not treat them well, but he would not complain that the heavens were unfair. It had already given them compensation in this life. He had to cherish this hard-won fate between mother and son. After Fu Yun cried, Wen Wen was completely comforted. After Wen Wen did not act strangely, Uncle Mai and Uncle Guo left the old house to do their own things. Fu Yun only had time to do her own things at this time. She remembered that her phone was already turned off and quickly charged it. Aunt Mai was worried about the mother and son, especially Wen Wen, so she kept accompanying them and chatting about trivial matters in the village. The old house had not been lived in for a few days, but it was still very clean and tidy. It was not cold and lifeless either. It could be seen that Aunt Mai often came here. Aunt Mai was someone who could not sit still. She saw that the courtyard was full of work, and she cleaned up the vegetable garden. She even made a sumptuous dinner. Aunt Mai's heart ached terribly. Wen Wen's illness had caused her to suffer, and even the adults had suffered as well. They had to be well nourished. Wen Wen's health improved, and Fu Yun also had an appetite to eat. After eating a delicious dinner, her stomach felt warm, as if the fatigue in her body had been expelled. She saw that her phone was almost fully charged, so she unplugged the charging cable and turned on her phone. The moment she turned it on, she saw dozens of missed calls. More than 10 of them were from Uncle Guo, and the rest were from her livestream assistant and the room manager. Oh no! Fu Yun exclaimed. She had forgotten to tell the platform and fans that the livestream was cancelled today. It was already afternoon, long past the normal livestream time. And because her phone was turned off, her assistant could not contact her. She did not know how chaotic the livestream was. Fu Yun hurriedly replied to her assistant, "Sorry, something happened here. I didn't have time to inform you that I won't be able to livestream for the next few days." Less than 2 seconds after the message was sent, the phone rang. Her assistant, Tian Tian, asked in a concerned voice, "Yun Yun, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine." "Tian Tian, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell all of you that I might not be able to livestream for the next few days." Fu Yun said apologetically, and then briefly told her about Wen Wen's illness. She was so focused on Wen Wen that she had long forgotten about the livestream. If she had not seen the missed calls on her phone, she would not have remembered about it. Tian Tian expressed her understanding and put the child first. She asked her to take good care of the child and expressed her concern before ending the call. After Fu Yun hung up the phone, she hurriedly logged into the platform. Sure enough, her platform was about to explode. Her private messages were exploding. Most of them were concerned about whether something had happened to her and asked why she was not livestreaming. Fu Yunruo hurriedly posted a status. She explained the reason for missing the livestream and said that she would not livestream again before the baby fully recovered. Finally, she said that she would ask Uncle Guo to take good care of Lan Hua. The fans also knew that Uncle Guo was the person who introduced her to Lan Yi and taught her. He could be said to be her teacher. The fans were also very concerned about the health of the old and young. They left messages to comfort her and said that they would wait for her to come back. Although many fans said so, Fu Yun knew in her heart that her popularity would definitely decrease a lot if she stopped broadcasting. Many viewers had already formed a habit because they basically came to watch her livestream. If she stopped broadcasting, the viewers would not be able to watch the livestream. They would definitely lose patience in a few days, and then her popularity would quickly decrease. People always had to make choices. Although she could not bear to give up her popularity, in Fu Yun's heart, the baby was the most important. She wanted to focus on accompanying and taking care of the baby. The baby's illness this time scared her. It was even more frightening than when he suddenly cried in the middle of the night. Fu Yun felt that it might be because she had spent too much time on the livestream and operating the account that she had unintentionally paid less attention to the baby. That was why the baby felt insecure. She reflected on herself and was determined to change. That was her decision. However, she and the baby had only stayed in the old house for 3 days when Wen's baby started to make a fuss. He patted the back of Fu Yun's hand and pointed outside as he shouted, "Go, go." At first, Fu Yun thought that he wanted to look for Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai. Just as she carried him out of the door and turned in another direction, Wen said something again. No, no. The direction was wrong. They were not going that way. Where is the baby going? Fu Yun looked at Wen's expression and tried to walk in different directions. In the end, she still looked unhappy. Kai Wen was anxious. Go, go. Kai Wen frowned. It was too difficult for a child to speak. He had already said the words that he wanted to say over and over again, but in the end, he still said them word by word. If he spoke faster, he would not be able to speak clearly. Fu Yun then realized that he wanted to go to the flower garden. Hence, she coaxed him. We'll just stay at home. We won't go there for the time being. Grandpa Guo will help us take care of Hua broadcast. If you don't go over, what will happen to your live broadcast? It was not easy for you to accumulate so much popularity. If you don't broadcast now, everyone will leave. I'm not going to broadcast. Mommy will stay at home with Wen. When recovers, Mommy will go and earn money. No. He was almost recovered. Kai Wen was so angry that his cheeks were puffed up. This illness came and went quickly. Perhaps it was because he had let go of the pent-up frustrations in his heart and completely opened his mind. Kai Wen's illness also recovered quickly. After resting for 3 days, he was already much more energetic. He only coughed occasionally. He believed that in less than 2 days, he would be able to fully recover. The entertainment industry and the live broadcast industry had many things in common. Popularity needed to be managed. Just like how a typical celebrity's popularity would fade if they did not have any new works for a long time, it was the same for live broadcasts. Kai Wen was extremely worried. If one day his popularity dropped so much, wouldn't he be so sad that he would cry? Baby, be good. Grandpa and Grandma miss baby. Let's go and accompany them, okay? Fu Yun coaxed him as she walked towards the My Family's house. Before she reached the My Family's house, she heard lively sounds coming from the My Family's courtyard. Fu Yun walked forward. A group of uncles and aunties were basking in the sun as they chatted. Fu Yun walked into the courtyard and greeted everyone. Then, she asked curiously, "What are you talking about? Why was it so lively? Hey, Yun Ruo, you don't know. Something big happened in our neighborhood," an auntie said mysteriously. "What big thing?" Fu Yun asked cooperatively. Another auntie interrupted, "In our town, a murderer was caught this morning." Fu Yun took a deep breath. A murderer? Was it that scary? Hey, isn't it just a suspect? That's right. It's just that he hasn't been convicted yet. Now that he's caught by the Public Security Bureau, won't he be convicted? My nephew works at the police station. I heard that he escaped from a big city and came to our town. Our transportation here is not convenient. We are far away from the big city and surrounded by mountains. Some of the mountains are too deep and we don't dare to go in without a few companions. Isn't this a good place to hide? Fortunately, he was caught. Otherwise, it wouldn't be safe for us to go out. That's right. I heard that this murderer is very cruel. The group of people once again began to discuss animatedly. The place they were in was relatively isolated. Once there was a piece of fresh news, it would spread quickly and be discussed for a long time. Perhaps many things were spread and lost the truth, but people enjoyed it. We are surrounded by mountains. Basically, we rarely see outsiders. Who doesn't know each other in the surrounding villages? The public security officers outside tracked him here and cooperated with our comrades at the police station. As long as the person didn't hide in the deep mountains and forests, how could they not find him? That's right. How can it be so easy to hide in the deep mountains and forests? There's no food and shelter. Can't they only go to town to buy things? There's no food in the fields in the middle of winter. They can't steal. When Kai Wen suddenly heard such terrifying news, he couldn't be bothered to be angry. He pricked up his ears to listen to the gossip seriously. Fu Yun also listened seriously and couldn't help but feel scared. Fortunately, she didn't meet him that night. Otherwise, she and the baby might have met with misfortune. She even had an intuition that perhaps she really had a brush with death that night. At that time, she really had an intuition that she was going to meet with misfortune. That kind of mysterious feeling still made her hair stand on end when she thought about it. In the end, it was her son's sudden cry that broke the treacherous atmosphere. Fu Yun thought that the baby was really her lucky star. He was the one who pulled her back from the brink of death. At this time, she also had an intuition that her death was already over. Her life was completely free from the influence of the plot. She didn't have to be afraid and worry about when an accident would befall her. Fu Yun couldn't help but lower her head and rub Kai Wen's face with a warm smile. Kai Wen, who was listening to the gossip seriously, was suddenly intimately rubbed against his face. Although he didn't know why, his body instinctively moved back. Kai Wen thought in distress. There was no other way. This woman was too clingy. What could he do? The mother and son were so clingy that people couldn't help but smile. Chapter 21. Fu Yun returned to the flowerbed on the 4th day. She could not resist Wen Wen's insistence, so she could only bring him over. When Uncle Guo saw the mother and son, he was happy for a moment. Then, he pulled a long face and said unhappily, "Why are you here so soon? You don't need to be in a hurry to take care of this place. I can do it alone. Wen Wen is so sick. He has to recuperate well." Fu Yun said helplessly, "Wen Wen has been clamoring to come over. I can't do anything about it." Then she said, "I've already brought Wen Wen for a follow-up. He's almost recovered, but he still has a little cough. He'll be fine after stewing some rock sugar and pear for him to moisten his throat." It was not good for a child to take too much medicine. After confirming that he did not need to take medicine, Aunt Mai specially bought pear and rock sugar and asked her to bring them over to stew some water for the child to stop his cough. Wen Wen, who was tied on his back, tried his best to poke his head out. A pair of big black eyes were revealed as he shouted at Uncle Guo, "Master." Yes. Uncle Guo's stern face could no longer be maintained. He smiled like a flower. Yes. With Wen Wen's appearance, Uncle Guo instantly stopped saying anything. He waved his hand and asked her to put Wen Wen down. Then, he walked out of the flower shed. Fu Yun untied the child and placed him on the blanket in the flower shed. She scratched his smooth little face. "You little bootlicker." Wen Wen looked up at her with an innocent face. "Mom." "Yes." Fu Yun replied. Uncle Guo quickly brought a bunch of new toys over and asked Fu Yun to do her own things. He would take care of Wen Wen himself. Fu Yun was not at ease letting Wen Wen out of her sight. It was not that she did not trust Uncle Guo, but that she would always miss him when she was not watching him. Fu Yun was still reluctant to part with him. Wen Wen had already waved his little hand. Broadcast. Then, he picked up a small running car and played with it by the side, ignoring Fu Yun. Fu Yun Ruo. Was this still the same baby that stuck to her all the time? It had only been a few days, and he no longer needed her company. Fu Yun could only go to the small greenhouse. She quickly posted a status update, informing them that the live stream would begin in 15 minutes. During these 15 minutes, Fu Yun had familiarized herself with the greenhouse and the live stream equipment. Uncle Guo had been taking care of the orchids in the greenhouse for the past few days. Every orchid in the petri dish was growing well. They were green and full of vitality. 15 minutes later, she opened the live broadcast room on time. "You're finally here. Yun Yun, you're back. Heart to heart, I can't believe it. Yun Yun has finally started broadcasting." The moment the broadcast started, the number on the popularity screen jumped up and only slowed down when it broke through the 100,000 mark. During this time, the number 1 on the fan list, the digital nouveau riche, also entered. Fu Yun was very surprised. She had already prepared for her livestream's popularity to be cut in half, but looking at the situation, it did not seem as bad as she had imagined. A bunch of bullet screen comments swarmed in on the screen, and some of them even overlapped. Fu Yun Ruo was dazzled for a moment, and the digital nouveau riche also expressed his greetings. The words were surrounded by a circle of light, and it was very eye-catching among the crowd. After seeing most of the questions, Fu Yun Ruo said, "Long time no see. I'm Yun Yun. I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long. Thank you for your concern. Zai Zai is doing very well. She no longer had a fever 4 days ago, and her condition has improved in the past 2 days. Now, she just has a small cough." Fu Yun Ruo seriously explained Wen's situation in detail, and then thanked the fans for their concern. Then, Fu Yun Ruo could not help but say, "Actually, I planned to wait until Zai Zai had completely recovered before doing the livestream. However, Zai Zai kept clamoring to come yesterday and wanted me to do the livestream. She was even unhappy if I didn't come. She knows me well. Woo woo, Zai Zai is so considerate. Mama loves Zai Zai. Zai Zai is so obedient, but you can't ignore Zai Zai because of this." There were too many questions on the bullet screen. Fu Yun Ruo directly chose to answer the questions that she had seen more. "Yes, Uncle Guo is helping to take care of the children now. I'll be careful. I'll definitely take good care of our children." Huh? That's not right. Fu Yun Ruo realized that she had been led astray by the bunch of children on the screen. Fu Yun Ruo quickly corrected herself. "I'll definitely take good care of my children." After chatting for a while, the audience's attention began to be diverted to other things. "Ah, Yun Yun Ruo, let me see my 6th son. I haven't seen him for so many days. I really miss him to death. Yun Yun Ruo, let me take a look at my children. It's been so many days. I wonder if they've grown up. Did they grow an extra leaf? My 7th son." The screen was filled with comments expressing their longing, asking for their children, brothers, and sisters to appear on the screen. At this moment, the digital nouveau riche also sent a message reminder. 11. Fu Yun Ruo answered one by one. "The children are all fine. The eldest has grown up a little." Fu Yun Ruo counted their changes one by one. From the seeds of the orchids to the sprouts now, Fu Yun Ruo had witnessed their growth with her own eyes and was familiar with every change. Previously, she did not feel that she missed them. Now that she looked at these sprouts, she thought that her feelings were the same as the audience. Although these orchids were not as important as the babies in her heart, they were still very important. This time, Fu Yun Ruo broadcast for a long time. She originally only wanted to give a simple explanation and talk to the audience. However, as more and more viewers poured in, Fu Yun Ruo unknowingly said a lot. The audience listened with relish and interacted enthusiastically. They almost fought on the screen because they wanted more screen time for the orchids. They seemed to want to make up for 6 to 7 days of livestream viewership at once. When the livestream ended, Fu Yun Ruo took a look. There were more than 250,000 viewers. It was a little different from the 300,000 viewers she had before she stopped the livestream. However, this was much better than she had imagined. She thought that it would be good if there were tens of thousands of viewers. At worst, it would be back to square one. She did not expect that those familiar IDs were still there. This meant that the effect of her livestream was not bad. The audience was very loyal. Fu Yunruo secretly decided that she would do a better livestream in the future to repay the love of her fans. She walked out of the greenhouse and saw the babies and Uncle Guo squatting together at first glance. Fu Yunruo walked over quickly. When Ruo saw Fu Yunruo he immediately threw away a block in his hand and stood up as if he wanted to walk towards her. However, the child's leg bones had not fully developed. As soon as he stood up, before he could take a small step, he trembled and squatted down one by one. Not only that, his small body lost its balance and leaned back. Uncle Guo, who was at the side, held him in time. Otherwise, he would have fallen onto the blocks. Fu Yunruo hurriedly went over to carry him up. She sat on the carpet and crossed her legs. She placed the babies on her lap and rubbed his chubby little buttocks. "Babies, did you hurt from the fall?" "It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt." Fu Yunruo saw that he seemed to be in disbelief and could not help but laugh in her heart. She comforted him with a serious expression on her face. "Mommy will blow on it. It hurts so much." The carpet on the floor was thick and soft. Kai Wen did not feel any pain when he fell. It was just that his self-esteem made him feel embarrassed. He did not expect that not only did he not know how to walk, he could not even stand properly. He had practiced for so long before. It was too embarrassing. "Babies, don't be discouraged. Work hard to drink milk and eat more food. You will be able to walk very soon," Fu Yunruo encouraged him. The babies had just learned how to stand up by holding on to things. He could not stand for too long. There was still a distance before he could stand properly. When he could stand properly, he would not be far from walking. Babies are the best. Kai Wen listened to Fu Yunruo's gentle voice and thought that since he was a baby, it was normal for him not to know how to walk. "Mommy." "Yes, Mommy is here." Baby Wen lay in his mother's arms. His two little feet dangled in the air and swayed comfortably. Uncle Guo saw that after Fu Yunruo's live broadcast, Wen's mother would take care of him. He got up and went to work, leaving the mother and son alone. Kai Wen's bright eyes, which had just recovered, looked at Fu Yunruo. He did not know how much his popularity had dropped after so many days of live broadcast. Was Mommy very sad to see that his popularity had dropped so much? Thinking of this, Kai Wen put his little hand on her. "Broadcast. How was the live broadcast?" It did not matter even if his popularity was not there. He could accumulate it again. At the mention of this, Fu Yunruo smiled and said happily, "Babies, our popularity did not drop much. Many people are concerned about us. They are also concerned about the babies." Kai Wen listened and felt relieved. Then, he thought proudly that she was indeed his mother. She was so popular. After enjoying the gentle comfort from her mother, Wen turned over and climbed to the front of the exquisite semi-finished small castle in 3 steps. He waved his little hand and looked as if he had built this for him. He said proudly, "Kang." Fu Yunruo said in surprise, "Wow, is this the castle that my babies built? It's so beautiful. Babies are so awesome. Babies are so awesome. You are the smartest babies that Mommy has ever seen." Kai Wen was so elated by the praise that his 4 white baby teeth were exposed. "Grandpa." After he was done laughing, he even brought Grandpa Guo out. Grandpa Guo had also helped. He would not take all the credit for himself. Fu Yunruo continued to praise him. This small castle made of building blocks was as tall as Wen's small body. It was a new toy that Uncle Guo had bought. Now that more than half of it was completed, the framework was already out. Only then did Kai Wen pick up a piece of scattered building blocks in satisfaction and prepare to continue building the castle. Since his mother liked it so much, he wanted to show her the finished product. How could he only look at the half-finished product? Fu Yunruo was full of smiles and helped him from time to time. Suddenly, she thought of something and quickly picked up her phone. She chose an angle that did not show her face and recorded a video. In order to thank the fans for their concern for Wen, Fu Yunruo decided to record a short video without showing her face for everyone to see. After recording, Fu Yunruo sent it to the computer and edited it before uploading it to the homepage. In the video, Wen's back was facing the camera. He was sitting in front of the building blocks and seriously setting them up. Occasionally, when the position was too high, he tilted his head as if he was distressed and thinking of a solution. Then, he crawled away and pushed a small rubber stool over. Then, he stood up with the help of the small rubber stool and tried his best to raise his chubby hands and put them on it. His chubby little butt was especially eye-catching. After installing the last building block, Wen pointed happily. Look. The video moved to the beautiful little castle that had been built and then ended. This short video, which was 1 minute and 38 seconds long, was uploaded. The comment section was very lively. Ah, little cutie, did you grow up drinking cuteness? My home child. How is this? Is cute. My little one is really cute. Is this the castle that my child gave to his mother? My little one is really cute and handsome. He has outstanding talent and is smarter than others. Suck, suck, suck. My child. My little one. Ruarua. The people who liked the most in the comment section were those who asked Fuyun Ruo to upload more videos of her little one. They all condemned her for being biased. They would throw a tantrum if she only shared the eldest one to the 11th one all day and left out the little one. Fuyun Ruo was happy and proud. My baby is the cutest in the world. No one can resist his cuteness. Fuyun Ruo's days returned to their usual pace. Every day, she broadcast for 3 hours. 1 hour was spent dealing with online matters. The rest was spent raising children and flowers. Fuyun Ruo often received private messages or comments. Some of them wanted to start raising flowers but did not know what species to raise. Some of them had some problems with their orchids and asked her for solutions. There were also many orchid artists who shared their experience with her. The platform promoted her again. The popularity that she had lost last time slowly recovered and continued to rise. Because of the popularity of the live broadcast, many businesses in related industries came to her door and wanted to advertise in the live broadcast. When she first became popular, many businesses came to her door. For example, some bought and sold flowers, some bought and sold soil for cultivation, and some related tools. However, they were all brands that were not guaranteed. At least, Uncle Guo did not like them. Uncle Guo's understanding of Lan Yi's industry could be said to be at the peak. He was clear about the internal situation over the past few decades. Fuyun Ruo did not dare to accept those that he did not think highly of. Fuyun Ruo rejected all the invitations at that time and said that she would not consider accepting advertisements. Anyway, she was not short of money now. The most important thing was to be responsible for the audience. And now, another client wanted to invite her to be their spokesperson. The client who came to her door this time was very valuable. When Fuyun Ruo heard this name, she thought that wasn't this the brand that their flower nursery often used. This time, the client came to her through the platform. Fuyun Ruo thought about it and went to ask Uncle Guo for his opinion. Uncle Guo, the person in charge of the horticultural home, came to me and wanted me to endorse their family's cultivation base. The soil used in the flower nursery was basically from their family. If Uncle Guo could use it for a long time, it meant that the quality was very good. Fuyun Ruo did not have to worry about these problems. However, she still wanted to confirm with Uncle Guo. When Uncle Guo heard Fuyun Ruo's words, he did not think much and nodded directly. Who looked for you? Who did you discuss the contract with? The Tan family's son is an old fox. You're still young. Don't be fooled. Uncle Guo pondered for a moment. I'll go and talk to his father. Ah! Fuyun Ruo was stunned. If she remembered correctly, the owner of the horticultural home was surnamed Tan. Was the Tan family's son the young master of the horticultural home? Was this still the Uncle Guo she knew? Uncle Guo wore grey clothes all day long and stayed in this small plot of land every day. If she had not bought a few sets of clothes to show filial piety to him, he would have taken turns to wear those few sets of clothes all year round. She never expected that Uncle Guo would actually know someone who seemed to be from a different world. What? Uncle Guo saw her expression and his face instantly darkened. Did she not believe him and think that he was boasting? No. Fu Yunruo closed her shocked jaw and flattered, "Uncle Guo, you're too amazing. With you around, I'm relieved." Uncle Guo snorted coldly. "Wait." Fu Yunruo nodded repeatedly. Uncle Guo took out his phone and dialed a number. Then, he said in a very aggressive tone, "Old man Tan, your family wants my family's Yunruo to endorse? Let me tell you, if you dare to let Yunruo suffer, I won't let you off." Fu Yunruo. Was it really okay to say this? The facts proved that it was really okay. Not long after, Uncle Guo gave her a phone number and asked her to contact the person in charge of negotiating the contract. Fu Yunruo gave the number to her assistant, Tian Tian. 2 hours later, she received a call from Tian Tian and heard her excited voice. Her endorsement contract was actually the treatment of an A-list celebrity, and the conditions were very relaxed. It was simply a pie that had been smashed. In the end, Fu Yunruo hung up the phone with a mystified expression and looked at Uncle Guo with admiration. Uncle Guo looked reserved and proud. "I used to be in the outside world." Fu Yunruo thought to herself, what kind of luck did she have to actually meet such a reclusive big shot and even become his student? Was her luck turning for the better after suffering? After being excited, Fu Yunruo thought about it again. Actually, there were already signs that Uncle Guo was not an ordinary person. There were so many expensive orchids in the flower shed. If he sold them, he would become a millionaire in minutes. And Uncle Guo had a student who was doing well in the entertainment industry. Then, what about his other students? Could it be that they were also some industry elites? Uncle Guo had been in Lanyi for so many years. His professional skills were at the peak of perfection. He was probably a legend in this circle. Therefore, it was normal for him to know the big shots in the relevant industries. It was just that Uncle Guo's usual behavior was too ordinary. This was also a remote mountain area that was isolated and backward. She often thought that she was just an ordinary flower farmer. What kind of luck did she have to actually learn from such an amazing person? Fu Yunruo thought to herself that she had to work harder. Although Uncle Guo had never admitted that she was his student, she learned Lanyi from Uncle Guo. She could not embarrass Uncle Guo. Chapter 22. The village in the remote mountain valley was quiet and peaceful, far away from the hustle and bustle of the city. It was like a paradise, and even the pace of time was slow. The morning in the village was comfortable and tranquil, and the birds on the branches made crisp and melodious chirping sounds. A group of children suddenly rushed out of the alley, breaking the silence, and the village suddenly became lively and lively. They ran in the same direction happily, and before they reached their destination, the children's voices were excitedly shouting a name. When. After a while, more than 10 children all stood at the gate of a farmhouse. They stretched their necks and shouted, When, come out quickly. When. Not long after, a little fatty came out from behind the gate. At that moment, it seemed that all the light was poured on him. Tuanzi's big black grape-like eyes were bright and spirited. Her eyelashes were long and curly, and her skin was snow-white. Her small hands and feet were chubby, and the baby fat on her face made people want to pinch and poke to see if it was as good as imagined. As soon as the little fatty came out, he was surrounded by a group of children of different heights. When, let's go and play. When, play with us. When, let's play hide-and-seek today. When, more than 2 years passed by leisurely. Adults may feel that years passed in the blink of an eye, and there was no change except for the increase in age. The passage of time was very obvious in children. The little mythological beast changed from a mollusk to a reptile, to a toddler learning to walk with its short legs, and to a fast runner. It only took 2 or 3 years. This cute and adorable dumpling was Fu Wen. Kai Wen admitted that Fu Yun had given him the name, but he was only willing to admit half of it. He thought that his name was Fu Wen, not Fu Wen. This name was not in line with his handsome face when he grew up. If the haters in his previous life knew about it, they would definitely laugh their heads off. Therefore, Fu Wen insisted that his name was Fu Wen. However, these children called him Wen all day long. He didn't correct them one by one, so he just let them be. Wen looked up at the group of children who were quarreling with each other in order to play with her. She sighed sadly in her heart. Being too popular was also a kind of trouble. At this moment, a soft and small hand quietly reached out and grabbed his hand. Wen turned his head and looked over. The little girl, who was a head taller than him, gave him an adorable smile. The 5-year-old Dian said softly, Wen, let's play house. I'll be the mother, and you'll be the baby. A tanned little fatty squeezed over and said loudly, Wen won't play house with you girls. Wen wants to play Japanese with us. Dian was startled by the loud voice and looked at the little fatty timidly. Then, it looked at Wen with tears in its eyes. The 6-year-old girl, shouted back, Wen doesn't play your game. It's not fun at all. It's not fun to play house. None of your games are fun. Wen, let's go catch some fish and shrimp. We'll give the fish and shrimp we catch to Sister Ruoruo and make porridge. Hearing this, Fu Wen was a little moved. The streams and rivers here had not been polluted by industry, so the fish and shrimp they caught were edible. After washing them, they were placed in a pot with rice and cooked with some ginger and oil. The result was a pot of fragrant fish and shrimp porridge. The group of children who wished they could pierce through the sky often climbed trees to catch birds and eggs, went down to the river to catch fish, shrimp, loaches, and snails. Whenever they found something new, they would bring it all to the Fu family and gather there to eat. However, the new year had just passed, and the weather was still a little cold. The adults wouldn't let the children go into the water, so they could only dream about it. Wen didn't want his mother to worry, so he could only express his regret. They were still quarreling, and there was no decision for a long time. Stop quarreling. The cute little voice didn't have any power, but as soon as the voice came out, the quarreling children instantly quieted down and looked at the snowy little ball, waiting for him to make a choice. Wen said in a voice that he thought was cool, but was actually cute, I don't play these childish games. The children, ranging from 4 to 12 years old, all looked at Wen. Then, little Shichu blinked and asked foolishly, then are we going to play a hero game? No. Wen said seriously, today we're going to play the Emperor game. I want to be the Emperor. I want to be the Empress Dowager. Dian was the first to respond. She was quite cautious and wanted to be the mother of her favorite Wen. Hesitated and thought of the most impressive character in the TV series, then I want to be the Empress. The group of children originally liked to watch cartoons, but Wen liked to watch TV shows that adults like to watch, so they gave up their favorite cartoons and accompanied Wen to watch TV shows. A few days ago, they watched a TV series about the Emperor, so they all wanted to play the character that left a deep impression on them. I want to be the Prime Minister. I want to be an official. Being an official is not an official position. Then I want to be a treacherous official. Little Shichu saw that his friends had chosen the character they wanted to play, so he said, Then I want to be a concubine. Said, you're a boy, so you can't be a beloved concubine. Little Shichu felt wronged. Why not? Tilted her head. She didn't know why, but the concubines in the TV series were all girls. She said, you can't be one. Little Shichu's eyes suddenly became teary. He looked at Wen and choked with sobs. I want to be the person closest to Wen. However, the girl refused to let him mix into the group of girls. Little Shichu's tears were about to fall, but Wen said seriously, then I'll make you my head of internal affairs. That's the person I trust the most. When little Shichu heard this, he immediately smiled through his tears. Okay, I want to be the head of internal affairs. The children were assigned their roles and crowded around Wen as they left the courtyard. Wen assigned them lines according to their roles. No matter the age of the children, they all tried to remember the lines of the roles they were going to play and the order of appearance. Not long after, under Wen's guidance, a treacherous officialdom reappeared. However, under the children's affectionate acting, there was no feeling of fighting and scheming or fighting in the harem. The adults passing by laughed every time they saw it. The children's serious and childish voices said the lines of the fight between the harem and the officials. It was really too funny. However, the children felt that they were super great. Not only did they remember the lines, but they also cooperated and acted it out. Although each of them only had 1 or 2 short lines, they were still very good at it. Moreover, they automatically added scenes for themselves. For example, the Empress Dowager and the head of internal affairs were competing for favor. For example, the loyal officials, in order to obtain the Emperor's favor, had internal strife and almost fought. Wen sat majestically on a small wooden bench prop, the dragon throne. She had a chubby little face and looked at the group of children who were acting so well that she couldn't watch them. She sighed sadly. It was really too difficult for him. Then, she seriously taught them how to play the roles again and again. The group of children played with relish until noon. At the call of the adults, they all prepared to go home for lunch. Zhuang, who was as thin as a black monkey, pulled Wen and swallowed his saliva. Wen, come to my house for lunch. My family slaughtered a chicken. I'll give you a big drumstick to eat. Zhuang's family never mistreated him. They never lacked food and toys. However, he was a premature baby. When he was born, he was thin and small. His family carefully raised him and even named him Zhuang, hoping that he would grow stronger. However, no matter how much he ate, he was still thin and small, like a malnourished child. Little Shitu also wanted Wen to go to his house, but his family didn't slaughter a chicken in the morning. He didn't want to fall behind and shouted, Wen, come to my house. I'll ask my grandmother to kill a big rooster for you to eat. At this time, a gentle and smiling female voice interrupted, thank you children for the invitation, but Wen has to go home and eat with me. The children looked up and saw a graceful and beautiful figure approaching from afar. Her soft black hair was braided and hung diagonally on the left side of her face. It made her palm-sized face look even more delicate. Older sister Ruoruo. The children shouted happily. Fu Yun looked at the group of children with a smile and said softly, my family also made delicious food. Children, come to my house. They looked up at Fu Yun and giggled as they ran away. No need, older sister Ruoruo. Then, they ran away like a swarm of bees. Fu Yun looked at Wen, whose cheeks were red from playing, and touched his little face. Although he wasn't sweating, it was still hot. Wen, did you have fun? Fu Yun asked softly as she held his little hand and walked home. Wen held Fu Yun's hand and unconsciously jumped up and down. Then, he realized that his behavior was too childish and seriously walked with small steps. When he heard Fu Yun's question, he curled his lips and said reservedly, just so. This year's underlings were too difficult to take care of. Although they listened to him most of the time, they occasionally disobeyed him. It was enough to give him a headache. As the king of the children in the village, from the age of 13 to the age of 1, Fu Wen often had this problem. These children are really too difficult to take care of. A little boy who was not even 4 years old said this sentence in an old-fashioned manner. Fu Yun was very amused and didn't expose this duplicitous child. Today was the weekend, and the primary school and kindergarten were on holiday. There were many more children who came to play with Wen than usual, and the little boy was obviously happier. Mom, have you finished discussing the cooperation? Fu Wen looked up and asked. He was very worried. Not only did he have to worry about his underlings, but he also had to worry about his mother's career. It's done, little housekeeper. Fu Yun said with a smile. In 2 years, Fu Yun didn't seem to have changed much. No, there should be changes. The comfortable and peaceful life polished her temperament. During this period of time, Fu Yun's popularity had undergone an earth-shattering change, and she had become a first-tier anchor in the live broadcast circle. Among the orchids that she cultivated with all her heart, the 7th Yi orchid and the 10th star butterfly orchid had bloomed a month ago. The pictures of the blooming orchids attracted widespread attention and spread in the circle. At first, there was some popularity, but it didn't go out of the circle. Later, Fu Yun saw that in the past 2 years, she would take at least 2 photos every day from morning to night. There were about 5,000 photos of each type of orchid. She had an idea and imported these photos into the editor. She spent half a month carefully editing them into a video that was 3 minutes and 38 seconds long. The video started from the seeds of the orchids, to them breaking out of the ground and growing tender buds, to them becoming seedlings, growing buds, and until the flowers bloomed. They swayed, and there were thousands of poses. It was so beautiful that it took people's breath away. People seemed to have witnessed the miracle of life from the video and experienced a visual feast. As for the fans who had participated in the growth process of the orchids from the beginning or midway, they were even more touched. It was like a child that they had painstakingly raised had grown into the most beautiful thing in the world. They were proud and touched, and even shed tears. Fu Yun's video went viral. Not only on the forum, but also in other places, it was reposted again and again. And this hot trend was reposted and commented on by the semi-official and semi-private Lan Yi Association official account. Life blooming was the most moving gesture. After that, it went viral. Not long after, it was reposted and liked by other official accounts, pushing her and the video to an even higher peak. The number of views of the video on the forum was as high as billions. Fu Yun's orchids under the lens were full of spiritual energy. The video, made from thousands of such lively photos, attracted the attention of the world with a stunning gesture. Just like the popular comments with many likes said, the author definitely loved orchids and loved life. I saw everything she loved and was moved by her love. Many netizens also commented that after seeing this video, they, who were originally frustrated, sad, or disappointed in life, slowly calmed down. It was as if they had been healed and had reignited hope. There were also netizens who said that the tinnitus caused by his anxiety disorder had been irritating him for a long time, and it had seriously affected his life. After watching this video, all the anxiety had magically disappeared. His ears no longer heard the irritating noise, but the sound of flowers blooming. Regardless of whether the netizens were telling the truth or not, this video really went viral. Even people who had no interest in flowers were not stingy in admiring the beauty of the flowers. A good piece of work had such charm. Fu Yun's number of fans also instantly broke through the 10 million mark because of this video and rapidly rose. Many passers-by fell into this trap because of this video. Less than 2 days later, a heavenly queen was about to release an album. It was an ancient-style xianxia. Coincidentally, the identity of the MV's female lead was an orchid demon. When their team saw this video, they were shocked. Hence, they found Fu Yun herself, hoping to sign a contract for the commercial use of the video and use it in the MV. The Heavenly Queen's team offered very generous conditions. After they discussed with Fu Yun's manager, they quickly finalized the cooperation. Good things came in pairs. At the same time, the Lan Yi Association also contacted Fu Yun, wanting to buy the copyright of the video for the association's publicity. The cooperation with the Heavenly Queen was discussed by the manager, and the cooperation with the Lan Yi Association was led by Fu Yun personally. The Lan Yi Association tried to buy the copyright of this video for the association's publicity. Fu Yun was very supportive of this kind of publicity, but she did not agree to let this video completely become the association's. Moreover, she had already authorized the Heavenly Queen. Fu Yun took out her other video. After she finished the first video, she started to make the second one. Because of her previous experience, her speed was even faster. However, she had not uploaded this video yet. The popularity of the first video had not passed, so the manager felt that it was not the best time to upload it. The Lan Yi Association met Fu Yun with another orchid video. After watching the work, it was even more visually stunning than the first one. Especially since it had not appeared in the public before, they immediately decided to use this video as a publicity video. After the two sides agreed on the cooperation plan, Fu Yun would be the publicity ambassador specially hired by the Lan Yi Association and use this video to promote the association. The copyright of the video would belong to her, but it would be tagged with the Lan Yi Association's tag. The video would appear as a publicity video. After these two collaborations were completed, her fame would also rise to another level. When that time came, as long as she did not court death or make a mistake of principle, her status in the live streaming industry would be unshakable. When heard Fu Yun say that the cooperation was successful, she was very happy. She could not help but grin, revealing her neat and white baby teeth. "Mommy is so awesome. Mommy is so awesome." When proudly stuck out her little belly. She was indeed his mother. She was so awesome. He was proud of her. Fu Yun was instantly overjoyed. No matter how much fame or money she had, It could not make her happier than Wenwen's praise. Fu Yun also praised, Wenwen is also the best. Mommy is the best. Wenwen is the best. Ha ha. Chapter 23. The mother and son chatted and laughed as they returned home. Fu Yun Ruo went to bring out the lunch she had prepared. Wenwen followed behind and went over to help serve the dishes. Fu Yun Ruo skillfully gave him 2 pairs of chopsticks. Wenwen was still young, so Fu Yun Ruo did not dare to give him anything that was too heavy or too hot. The mother and son placed the lunch on the dining table. Wenwen climbed onto the baby stool and saw the plate of meat on the table. He was so happy that he squinted his eyes. However, he was not in a hurry to eat. He first picked up 2 pieces of meat for Fu Yun Ruo before he started to eat. He ate with relish, and his eyes curved into beautiful crescents. Fu Yun Ruo saw that he was only eating meat and not vegetables, so she picked up some vegetables with her chopsticks and placed them in his exquisite and cute little bowl. Wenwen raised his head and looked at Fu Yun Ruo with a cute face. He said in a childish voice, "Mommy, I love you." Fu Yun Ruo tried hard to suppress the corners of her lips that wanted to curl up. She said with a straight face, "Mommy loves you too, but you still have to eat vegetables." Wenwen looked at her innocently with his black and bright eyes. He said coquettishly, "I love Mommy the most." As he said that, he put down his chopsticks and used his chubby little hand to make a little heart. Fu Yun Ruo almost did not keep a straight face. She looked at his chubby little body and her wavering position became firm again. "If you love me, then eat vegetables." This was too difficult. He was only a 4-year-old child. Why did he have to face such a dilemma? Wenwen glanced at his mother and acted coquettishly. "Mommy, I don't like to eat vegetables." Tilda in her previous life, there was no meat to eat in the orphanage. Occasionally, there would be minced meat, but that was during the new year. Wenwen had been hungry for a long time and had always been greedy for meat. Later on, when he had the means, he basically ate meat every day. If it were not for the fact that he did not gain weight easily, his manager would probably be angered to death by him every day. Therefore, he had never liked to eat vegetables. In fact, eating meat was also very good. Wenwen looked at her with his cute big eyes. Fu Yun Ruoshi, she could not take it anymore. No. After Fu Yun swayed, she held her ground with difficulty. She was worried about Wenwen's height. Compared to children of the same age, she was actually half a head shorter. She did not meet the height standards of this age at all. She was extremely worried. She thought that the drugs in her body when she was pregnant with him had affected the child's genes. She used Uncle Guo's connections to bring the child to a private hospital owned by one of his students. After all the tests were done, the child's body was very healthy and there were no problems. The reason for the delayed growth was most likely due to their genes. Some children would indeed develop slower in the early stages. Adults did not need to worry too much about it. They just needed to be nourished as usual. When, if you're picky about food, you won't grow tall. If you're picky about food, you won't be able to grow up to be an adult in the future, Fu Yun threatened. Wenwen kept saying that he was an adult. If Fu Yun knew that he wanted to grow up the most, she would use this sentence to scare him. Wenwen thought that this woman was becoming more and more childish. He was not a 3-year-old child. How could she deceive him? How could he not grow tall? In the past, when he was young, he did not eat meat for a year. Although he was shorter than his peers before he developed, after he started to develop, his height increased rapidly. Wenwen was not worried at all. He would grow to be a tall man who was 183 meters tall in the future. Now that he ate a lot of meat, he would definitely grow taller in the future. If you don't eat vegetables, you won't grow tall. Look at the second grandfather in the village. When he was young, he was picky about food. He only ate meat and did not eat vegetables. Look, he's not even as tall as me, Fu Yun said seriously. Her 168 meters height was not outstanding in the north. It was a very average height. However, in the south, girls were generally petite. This height was considered above average. Moreover, her body proportions were good, making her appear tall and leggy. Really? Wen thought of the second grandfather in the village and revealed a hesitant expression. The second grandfather was indeed not tall. He was only 150 meters, of course. Fu Yun vowed solemnly. Have I ever lied to you? Wen thought seriously. Could it be that he grew so fast because he ate too much vegetables when he was young? Wen was not sure. If he ate less vegetables now and did not grow as tall as he did in his previous life, that would not be good. He did not want to be unable to reach 180 meters, so he quickly nodded. I'll eat. Fu Yun's lips curled up slightly. She thought proudly, little boy, your mother is still your mother. After lunch, the mother and son strolled in the courtyard. Wen followed behind Fu Yun with his short legs. Suddenly, his black eyes turned and he ran up to hug Fu Yun's thigh. He looked up and said cutely in a small and cute voice, Mommy, I'm so obedient. Is there a reward? Fu Yun lowered her head and pinched his chubby and smooth little face. Wen, what reward do you want? Mommy, I want to eat braised meat. Fu Yun saw that he had eaten a lot of vegetables today, so she readily agreed. Okay. Wen immediately jumped in joy. Thank you, Mommy. I love Mommy the most. The little chubby hand touched his lips and then sent a flying kiss. Fu Yun did not know whether to laugh or cry. This little clever boy. Okay, it's time to take an afternoon nap. Okay. The mother and son happily went into the house and took a good afternoon nap together. After waking up, Wen was called out by a group of children to play. Fu Yun tidied up the house and also went out. Since she wanted to make braised meat, she had to buy more than one type. She needed to buy some meat, such as pig trotters and pig head meat. Fu Yun went to the village entrance and told the uncle at the stall to leave some pig trotters and pig head meat for her in advance. Then, she went to Aunt Mai's house and told her that she would kill a chicken and a duck tomorrow and ask Uncle Mai to kill them. Fu Yun did not have time to raise poultry, so Aunt Tuor Mai helped raise a few. The village was big, and every family raised a lot of poultry. It was not a big deal to have a few more. She gave some money as a reward for her hard work. Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai relied on the output of the fields all year round. Fu Yun used this opportunity to give them more money. They were not willing to accept it if she gave them money normally. Moreover, she did not know how to kill chickens, so she could only ask Uncle Mai for help. After Aunt Mai knew that she wanted braised meat, she agreed without hesitation. Early the next morning, the pork, chicken, and duck meat were all sent over. Fu Yun began to prepare the braised meat. The braised meat that she prepared under the aunt's guidance was preserved very well, and the taste was even more fragrant. Wen had eaten the braised meat made by an aunt in the village last year, and she liked it very much. Fu Yun specially asked the aunt if she could learn from her, and then specially sent a chicken to ask for advice. Fu Yun learned a skill, and because it was not good for children to eat too much strong food, she made it lighter. Unexpectedly, the taste was also not bad. However, Fu Yun still tried to make as little as possible. Occasionally, she would make some for Wen to satisfy her cravings. Fu Yun agreed so readily this time, but it had been almost a month. Aunt Mai had also killed a chicken herself and braised it while she was at it. The old man liked this kind of food. After Fu Yun began to braise the meat, the entire courtyard was filled with the fragrance, and the children were so attracted that they could not move. They did not go out to play, and all of them were in the courtyard, drooling as they smelled the fragrant smell. Dunzi swallowed his saliva and said enviously, Wen, your mother is so amazing. She knows how to cook delicious food. It smells so good. Little Shitu and the other children nodded in agreement, and their eyes were full of envy. Wen proudly stuck out his little belly and said, My mother is the best. He secretly swallowed his saliva. It smelled so good. After the first plate of braised meat was made, Fu Yun took it out and asked Wen to share it with the children. She knew that Wen would not eat alone, so she was not worried that he would eat too much. Sure enough, although Wen was drooling over the fragrant braised meat on the plate, he did not eat it himself. Instead, he looked at the children and tried to keep a straight face. Go wash your hands first. After you're clean, line up from the shortest to the tallest. One by one, each person gets a piece. The children obediently went to wash their hands. After they checked Wen one by one, they lined up from the shortest to the tallest, and Wen gave each person a piece. The children who received their share happily stood at the side and cherished it very much as they ate with relish. In the end, there was only one piece left. Wen raised his head to look at the teenager, Da Li, and then lowered his head to look at the piece of meat on the plate. Da Li saw this and stammered, "How about, I don't eat it?" Wen, you can eat it." Da Li looked at it a few more times with great reluctance, and then resolutely looked away. Wen said, "Here you go. There's more in the kitchen." Da Li thought about it and took the meat. "Then I'll eat it, eat." Da Li took the last piece of braised meat. Wen held the empty plate, turned his head, and ran into the kitchen with small steps. "Mom, I've finished sharing." Fu Yun looked at the empty plate and praised, Wen is the best." Wen said aggrievedly, "I didn't get any." "Hey!" Fu Yun was puzzled. She had clearly calculated that each person would get a piece. Perhaps she had miscalculated, or another child had come without her knowledge. "It's okay. Mom has more here." As for why she did not suspect that Wen was lying to eat an extra piece, Fu Yun thought that her son was so obedient and would not lie at all. Even if he wanted to eat more meat, he would only ask her for it. Fu Yun picked up a piece with her chopsticks. Wen opened his mouth wide and tried his best to tiptoe. He took the initiative to move closer. The fragrant braised meat entered his mouth. Wen's mouth was full of fragrance. His small mouth wriggled, and he narrowed his eyes happily. "Okay, go out and play with the children." Wen tried his best to raise his head to look at the stove. When he saw that there was so much braised meat, although he still wanted to eat more, there was no hurry. These were all his. Wen skipped out of the house in satisfaction. The children ate the meat and went to play happily. With Aunt Mai's help, Fu Yun finally finished braising all the meat. She looked at the braised food that looked and smelled good, and her heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. At first, Fu Yun thought that her culinary skills were not good and that she was not suitable to be a food streamer. But now, she realized that she was quite talented. After Fu Yun discovered Wen's foodie nature, she put in a lot of effort to make delicious food for him. She went online to learn how to make food and learned from the aunties in the village who were good at cooking. Her culinary skills improved by leaps and bounds. Whether it was fish, meat, pastries, or desserts, she could make them all delicious. She felt that even if she did not broadcast Lan Yi in the future, she could still be a food streamer. After Fu Yun left some for Uncle Guo and herself, she distributed the rest to the neighbors, especially Aunt Mai's family and the auntie who taught her how to prepare the braised food. Therefore, when Wen ran into the kitchen after playing enough, he saw that the kitchen was empty. He was instantly stunned. Where was so much braised meat? Chapter 24. When we're leaving. Fu Yun Ruo's voice came from outside. Wen turned and ran out of the kitchen. Standing in front of the electric scooter, he looked around but did not see anything big. There was only a square item wrapped in a bag in the basket in front of him. He tried his best to smell the fragrance in the air, but unfortunately, the fragrance in the courtyard had not dissipated. He could not smell it. Wen looked up and asked Fu Yun Ruo, "Mom, did you forget to bring something?" Fu Yun Ruo looked at Wen and said strangely, "No, I've brought everything." Wen panicked, "Braised meat." Fu Yun Ruo pointed at the tightly wrapped bag in front of her. "Isn't that it?" When heard this, he widened his eyes in disbelief. He had so much braised meat, but there was only so little. Fu Yun Ruo glanced at Wen and knew what he was thinking. She said, "Mom gave it to someone. Your grandpa likes to eat braised pig head meat with wine. Do you think we should give it to him? Grandma taught your mom how to braise meat. Do you think we should give it to him? Also." Fu Yun Ruo pointed out everything. When heard it, he felt that they should give it to him. In this way, he could only keep a little. Wen drooped his head. The days when he could eat braised meat to his heart's content had flown away just like that. This was not what he had imagined. Fu Yun Ruo drove Wen back to the flower garden. Uncle Guo saw Wen Wen's listless expression and immediately asked, "What's wrong with Wen Wen? Was he bullied by a child?" Fu Yunruo smiled and said, "Who would bully him? They're all protecting him. He's unhappy because he didn't eat enough braised meat." Uncle Guo's heart ached when he heard this. "Wen Wen, don't be sad. Grandpa Guo will buy braised meat for you to eat." Fu Yunruo lifted the lunchbox. "I made some today, Uncle Guo. You don't have to buy it, and Wen Wen can't eat too much." When it came to the child's health, Uncle Guo did not say anything. He quickly held Wen Wen's hand and said, "Come, let's go and see how Xiao Lankao is growing." Wen Wen heard this, she immediately perked up. An orchid. He had raised an orchid himself. Hence, Wen Wen and Uncle Guo went to the flower shed while Fu Yun went to the kitchen to start cooking. Wen Wen's small steps unconsciously quickened. She quickly ran to his small potted plant and squatted down to look at it. Seeing that the green seedling was in high spirits, he grinned happily. "You're so beautiful." Uncle Guo praised from the side. "Yeah, Wen Wen is really amazing." Wen Wen was even happier. He looked proudly at Lan Miao, who had finally survived. He knew that his mother was so good at raising orchids. How could he not be able to raise them? Ever since Wen Wen learned how to run and jump, he was very sensible and wanted to help the adults. With his small body, he could not use the shovel and other tools that the adults used. He asked his mother to buy a set of small tools for him to dig the soil and plant flowers. But what he did not expect was that the flowers he planted would all die. His mother and Grandpa Guo did not take it to heart. They probably thought that it was already very impressive for a 2- or 3-year-old child not to destroy flowers. How could he know how to raise flowers? But Wen Wen felt guilty. He did not know what went wrong, so he decided to focus on raising a flower first. However, one of the orchids he raised died after a few days. No orchid had ever lived for more than 10 days in his hands. Uncle Guo saw that Wen Wen had destroyed so many orchids, but he was not angry. Children were very curious about new things and were keen to explore. Wen Wen was happy when he suddenly froze. He picked up the small leaves and looked at them strangely. He remembered that he had accidentally pulled off a small section of a leaf 2 days ago. These few leaves were not missing a section. He looked carefully. He was too happy just now and did not notice. Now, the more he looked, the more he felt that this was not the orchid he had raised before. Wen Wen raised his little face. "This is not my orchid, Uncle Guo was at a loss for words. Then, he said with certainty, "How can it not be? This is your little orchid. But one of the leaves has a mark. This one doesn't." Wen Wen retorted. Uncle Guo was stunned. "What mark?" When he saw it, the leaves had already turned yellow. He did not notice it. "My orchid is dead," Wen Wen said with certainty. He observed Uncle Guo's expression and came to an answer. Uncle Guo could not find any words to refute, so he said carefully, "It's Grandpa Guo's fault. You asked me to take care of the orchid so seriously, but I raised it to death." Uncle Guo took the responsibility himself. In fact, 2 days ago, when Wen Wen's baby solemnly entrusted him to take care of his orchid, he knew at a glance that the orchid would not survive. He tried to save it for 2 days, but in the end, it withered. Uncle Guo was at a loss. Thinking that Wen Wen was coming back, he quickly found a similar orchid seedling to replace it. He did not expect that Wen Wen would see through him in the end. Uncle Guo coaxed, "Wen Wen, it's okay. Let's continue to raise it with this one. Look at how strong this seedling is. It will definitely survive." Wen Wen was shocked again and again. He was in a bad mood. He could not help but doubt himself. Was he poisonous? Otherwise, why would one orchid die after another? Clearly, his mother could raise so many beautiful orchids. He also had a professional like Uncle Guo by his side. He was influenced by him. Shouldn't he be lying down at the end of his life? Wen Wen said listlessly, "There's no need. I'd better not spoil Hua Hua. Hua Hua was so cute. It would be heartbreaking if it died under his care." Uncle Guo's heart instantly ached. How can it be spoiling Hua Hua? Wen Wen took care of Hua Hua so seriously. This was all an accident. Next time, You will definitely be able to raise beautiful flowers. No matter how Uncle Guo comforted him, Wen's expression was still listless. When he saw the plate of fragrant braised meat on the table for dinner, his eyes immediately lit up. At the dining table, after Wen ate the stipulated 3 pieces of meat, he said seriously to Fu Yun, "Mother, the hua I raised died. My young heart has been seriously hurt. Can I eat 3 more pieces of meat to comfort my injured heart?" Fu Yunruo paid special attention to food and drink. Everything that children could not eat or eat was strictly controlled. Those that could not be eaten more, such as braised meat, were limited to a certain amount at a time. Although Wen was greedy, he enjoyed his mother's concern more. He was keen on fighting a battle of wits and courage just to eat more meat. Fu Yun looked at her son's serious little face. This little guy was simply too desperate for a mouthful of meat. Fu Yun relented and said, "You can eat 1 more piece. But if you eat these vegetables, you can eat 1 more piece." Fu Yun was like most mothers now. She had the same worries. Children were picky eaters. They only ate meat and did not like vegetables. They were unwilling to go to kindergarten. They played like mud monkeys rolling in the mud every day. However, when the child looked at you with pure and innocent eyes, took the initiative to kiss you, rubbed your face, and said softly, "I love mother the most," you could not be angry at all. Fu Yun could not figure it out. How cute, obedient, and considerate were they when they were just born? She was often worried that the child would be bullied because he was too quiet when he grew up. Now that she thought about it, she was really naive at that time. It was said that men changed 18 times when they grew up. He was not even old yet, but he had changed so much. Fortunately, she could control this mischievous child. When heard Fu Yun's words, she immediately smiled and said, "Deal." Uncle Guo was very happy at the side. He ate the pig head meat that tasted better the more he chewed. Seeing that Wen's food was restricted, he felt that it tasted even better. Fu Yun noticed that Uncle Guo frequently picked up the meat and also reminded him, "Uncle Guo, it's not easy to digest meat if you eat too much at night. Eat less." Now that the weather was hot, even if there was a refrigerator, it was not good to keep the meat for too long. Fu Yun did not keep much meat. At most, she could eat 2 meals. She would cook every once in a while. Every time, the old and young did not stop eating, and she had to watch over them. Uncle Guo, Wen snickered at Uncle Guo. Wen ate 2 more pieces of meat and was happy for the entire night. However, the next day, when he saw the pots of lively orchids and thought of his unfortunately dead orchids, his mood instantly turned bad. He squatted on the ground and held his chubby little face as he sighed sadly. It was too difficult for him. He did not know if his mother would let him eat 2 more pieces of meat to comfort him. Wen slurped his saliva as if he had not had enough. When he thought of the little meat left, he became even more worried. He had so much meat, but there was only a little left. At this moment, Fu Yun was livestreaming, and many of the bullet screen comments asked about her child. Fu Yunruo shared his interesting story with the audience, causing them to burst into laughter. "My child is really too cute. My heart aches for my child, but I can't help it. Ha ha ha. My child is really a big treasure." The audience loved to hear about the old and the young. Fu Yun also loved to share with the audience. She wanted the whole world to know about her clever, cute, obedient, and sensible, smart son. The number of viewers who firmly occupied the #1 spot on the fan list smashed the sea of flowers again. Fu Yun was used to it and skillfully thanked them. In the past few years, she finally understood that this mysterious nouveau riche was really rich. Every time he appeared, he would definitely smash a sea of flowers. Under Fu Yun's repeated attempts to stop him, he finally restrained himself a little. At most, he would smash 10 flowers at a time. In the eyes of this nouveau riche, 1 million yuan was probably like 100 yuan. He would casually throw it out when he loosened his grip. Fu Yun thought about the unscientific nature of this world. There were many explosive news on the internet about a certain rich 2nd or 3rd generation spending tens of millions just to chase after celebrities. In the live-streaming industry, she was not the first person to be rewarded with 1 million yuan. She was making a fuss over nothing. In the living room of a simple but luxurious villa, a tall man was lying lazily on the sofa. He crossed his slender and straight legs, and his ankles protruded from the edge of the sofa. The tips of his toes were occasionally raised. Sai Yu leaned against the soft pillow and looked at the phone screen horizontally in his hand. The host's pleasant voice was like jade beads falling on a plate. It was very comfortable to listen to. He did not think that he was a voice fetishist, but this voice was not pretentious. It was pleasant to listen to, and it was much more comfortable than those who pretended to be weak and coquettish. When he heard the host say that the flowers raised by the old and young had died again, Sai Yu felt the same way. He had a better impression of the chubby little boy who appeared on the host's homepage from time to time. He could not help but love the only human child who had mixed in with the group of orchid brothers. He could not raise the flowers alive either. This little boy was just like him. Hence, he started to tip him. After watching the live stream, he clicked on the host's homepage and flipped to the hottest video. On the screen, a leaf orchid emerged from the soil and grew, blooming with fresh flowers. This was the thin leaf orchid of the leaf orchid. The flowers were pure white, and the stamens were light yellow-green. It was simple but elegant. Sai Yu watched it over and over again. At this moment, a plump middle-aged man walked in quickly. His forehead was covered in sweat. Yuan Shin wiped the sweat off his forehead. Sai Yu. Chem. Sai Yu and Sai Yu responded lazily and teased, "Why is Yuan Ji so free to come here?" Yuan Shin was relieved to see that Sai Yu was still in the mood to joke around. He discreetly observed Sai Yu's condition, afraid that something was wrong. "I accepted a variety show for you." Upon hearing this, Sai Yu raised his eyebrows. "Great manager Yuan, are you trying to exploit the masses of poor people?" Yuan Shin rolled his eyes unceremoniously. "How would I dare to exploit the great best actor Sai? You're the one who's exploiting me." Sai Yu had accepted a drama last year to compete for this year's Triennial International Awards. It was a drama about the many sides of human nature. It took almost a year to film this drama, and every scene was strived to be as realistic as possible. As one of the male leads, Sai Yu acted as a person with an extremely dark and negative heart. In the end, he lost his life because he tried to show some kindness. The other male lead was a veteran best actor, and his acting skills were superb. The two best actors acted together on the same stage. Yuan Shin was stunned by Sai Yu's explosive acting skills, especially when they stopped filming. Yuan Shin looked at Sai Yu, who seemed to still be in the dark and gloomy mood, and felt worried. At the end of the scene, the unreadable look in Sai Yu's eyes was even more heartbreaking. It had been 10 days since the filming of the drama ended. Sai Yu had been staying at home to adjust his state of mind. Yuan Shin came over every 2 to 3 days, afraid that Sai Yu would be too immersed in the role and not be able to get out of it. This time, he came with a mission. This was the first time he had accepted an invitation to a variety show without Sai Yu's approval. "This show is relaxing. It's a good chance to relax." Yuan Shin explained the content of the show to him. Sai Yu gave Yuan Shin a sideways glance, but did not say anything. Yuan Shin tried his best, but Sai Yu still did not say anything. Yuan Shin had no choice but to use his trump card. The location of the show is Kai Weiqing's teacher's hometown. You can pay him a visit. Sai Yu's eyes lit up when he heard this, but he still said reservedly, "I'm a flower owner now." He had not seen little 11 for a while, but she was already a budding flower. It would not be long before she would bloom even prettier than little 5. Yuan Shin was speechless. To be honest, he did not understand the mentality of a flower owner. What was there to be proud of? It was not like he had personally raised her. However, he knew better than to say this out loud. "It's fine if you don't go. Kai Wei Cheng wanted to ask you to pay his teacher a visit, but I rejected him." Yuan Shin was about to leave. Sai Yu said, "Since your big manager has agreed, how can I not go?" Yuan Shin sneered in his heart when he heard this. He spoke as if he could order him to do anything. What a damn man. If this was not the big boss of his boss, he would not have served him. Chapter 25. Wen Wen was shoveling mud with a small shovel. His fair face was stained with mud, but he didn't notice it. With the encouragement of his mother and Grandpa Guo, he regained his confidence and decided to continue planting orchids. He felt that it might be because the environment was not right. He shouldn't have planted it in a flower pot. He should have planted it in the garden. Maybe the orchids he was raising didn't want to be canaries and yearned for the free and vast sky outside. When huffed and puffed, he finally planted the flower seedlings. He followed the instructions given by Grandpa Guo and his mother seriously. Then, he watched over it from morning till night. On the first day, it was green and looked very energetic. He was happy. On the second day, it was a little wilted. Maybe it hadn't adapted to the new environment yet. On the third day, the leaves were a little yellow. Wen was anxious. Was it wilting again? On the fourth day, the flower died. Wen squatted in the corner, deep in thought. His chubby face was solemn and he was deep in thought. Why didn't he realize that he had such a physique in his previous life? Maybe it was because he was busy surviving and didn't grow flowers, so he didn't realize it. But this shouldn't be. His mother became a professional and outstanding artist in Lanzhou in just 2 to 3 years. Even Grandpa Guo was very satisfied with his mother. He once praised her in front of him that his mother was the most talented person he had ever seen. Genes could be passed down in reverse. Fu Yun looked at Wen, who seemed to have suffered a huge blow, and she was speechless. She didn't know what to say to comfort him. This time, in order to let Wen successfully grow the orchids, she and Uncle Guo watched from the side. Their operation was clearly correct. Logically speaking, as long as it wasn't too delicate, it should be easy to grow. But why did it just wilt? Could it be that there were really people who were plant insulators? Among her fans, a small number of them seemed to be such people. They said that they couldn't even grow a plant. She thought that it was an exaggeration. Now, she felt that perhaps there really was such a plant killer. Fu Yun finally said, "Baby, are we going back to the village in the afternoon?" When heard that, he immediately stood up and ran over with his short legs. "Going back? Isn't that tomorrow?" Fu Yun Ruo patted his little head. "When we go back today, do you miss the children very much?" "No." Wen shook her head and said reservedly, "Just a little. Go and say goodbye to Grandpa. You haven't seen him for 2 days. Now, go and accompany him." "Okay." Wen skipped to the flower shed. Fu Yun looked at Wen's lively and cheerful back view. His attention was diverted and he instantly forgot about the orchid grass. If Fu Yun thought about it, children should like to play with adults and children. Should she consider letting him go to kindergarten? Previously, she felt that 3 years old was too young and was not old enough to go to kindergarten. She would consider it again next year. Now that she thought about it, she could send him to kindergarten this September. She didn't know what kind of proof was needed to enroll in kindergarten. Did she need to register her baby? Her baby hadn't registered yet. In the afternoon, Fu Yun and Wen took an afternoon nap before returning to the village. When the children in the village saw Wen return, they were so excited that they jumped around. The little guy was obviously very happy as well. His eyes lit up and he happily went to play with the children. Fu Yun Ruo went to look for Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai. When she saw that only Aunt Mai was at home, she asked, "Where's Uncle Mai?" Fu Yun Ruo came back early with the child. It was only 3 o'clock. He went to town for a meeting, Aunt Mai said casually. Uncle Mai was the village chief and could be considered a grassroots cadre. If there were any instructions from the higher-ups, he would also summon the village chiefs for a meeting. Fu Yun Ruo nodded. "Why are you looking for your uncle?" "I want to ask Uncle Mai. Wen doesn't have a household registration. If he wants to go to kindergarten, what proof does he need?" "I know about this. Just ask me," Aunt Mai said. "We're not that strict here. He can go to kindergarten without a household registration." Fu Yun Ruo was relieved when she heard that. "That's good." Aunt Mai couldn't help but say, Ruo, the child's household registration problem has to be solved sooner or later. Even if it doesn't affect his kindergarten, it will affect his primary school and university." "I know." However, Fu Yun Ruo didn't know what to do. Her own household registration was still with the Fu family, so she couldn't register the child with her own household registration. Are you going to continue like this? Aunt Mai said lovingly. Young people nowadays all yearn for the big cities outside. They don't want to stay in the mountains for the rest of their lives and live their lives in a daze. You're still young. One day, you'll fly to the outside world. I know you're a good child. You're a phoenix in distress. Our mountain can't keep you. Aunt Mai saw through it. We all hope that you can face it bravely. Don't be defeated by the wind and rain. If you're tired, this is your last harbor. Fu Yunruo almost cried when she heard that. Although Aunt Mai didn't ask anything, she knew everything in her heart. She was really lucky to have met Aunt Mai's family and Uncle Guo. The education resources in the big cities outside are much better than in the mountains, Aunt Mai said earnestly. Aunt Mai said earnestly, so, for your own sake and for Wenwen's future, you should make plans early. Fu Yunruo nodded and said solemnly, I'll consider it carefully. She had considered this problem in the past. She knew that even if it was for the sake of her child, she would leave this place and return to the big city one day. After her death 2 years ago, Fu Yunruo still thought about whether she should go out. However, at that time, her career had just started. On one hand, she couldn't bear to let go of her career. On the other hand, she couldn't bear to leave this place. She had a sense of belonging to this place. She had someone she couldn't bear to part with. Furthermore, the baby was still young. It wasn't time for her to make a choice yet, so she had always refused to think about this difficult choice. To her, Uncle Guo was undoubtedly the person who gave her a second life. The knowledge he taught her completely changed the trajectory of her life. He had no children, so she was most worried about him. Even if he had nephews and grandnephews here, if possible, Fu Yunruo wanted to do her best. Even if she had to go out, she wanted Uncle Guo to go with them. She just didn't know if Uncle Guo was willing. She couldn't bear to part with Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai. They had their son to take care of them. Fu Yunruo knew that they wouldn't leave their hometown. It's good that you don't mind me talking too much. Fu Yunruo said coquettishly, I know Aunt Mai is doing this for my own good. This topic was too heavy, so they quickly changed the topic. Didn't the city summon the county leaders for a meeting previously? It seems that some television station is coming to our small place to film some program. I haven't heard of it. Fu Yunruo thought to herself. It was such a new thing, but she didn't seem to have heard anyone discussing it. It's not like they're coming to our place. I heard that there's some confidentiality agreement. They can't talk about it everywhere. As the county next to them had snatched this spot, it was very far away from them. Moreover, the television station had requested that it couldn't be revealed for the time being, so there was basically no gossip here. Then now, why did they call Uncle Mai for a meeting again? Fu Yunruo keenly caught the main point. Who knows? The old man has gone to several meetings because of this matter these few days. Aunt Mai wasn't too sure about the situation at the moment. When she asked the old man, he was very mysterious. She didn't know what he was up to. Fu Yunruo was also quite curious, but Uncle Mai hadn't returned yet. She sat for a while more before going back to cook dinner. At night, Fu Yunruo brought her son to the Mai family. Before May, the weather had already begun to warm up. It was as if they had just woken up and stepped into summer. It was still cold at night. The children were all wearing long sleeves and running around the village. As Wenwen had to accompany Grandpa Mai and Grandma Mai, he didn't run around with his friends. Fu Yunruo was also worried. If he ran into a dark place and accidentally bumped into something, her heart would ache. The children ran around Fu Yunruo and her son, laughing and laughing. It wasn't until they entered the Mai family's house that the children laughed and dispersed. Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai were very happy that the mother and son had arrived. They hurriedly invited them to sit down and brought them food. Uncle Mai and his wife asked about Wenwen's well-being for a while before they talked about the topic they had talked about during the day. This spot has been given to our county. Uncle Mai's tone was very happy. Aunt Mai said strangely, what? This spot can still be changed? Uncle Mai took a sip of tea and kept them in suspense before he said leisurely, I heard that this spot was given to that side because the leader there used his connections. However, it was said that when the television station came to inspect, the leader's brother-in-law also accompanied them. He drank too much during the meal and offended the television station. Uncle Mai's tone was subtle. He never expected that such a good thing would happen to them in such a way. When Fu Yunruo heard Uncle Mai's words, she couldn't help but think. Which television station and which program was it? She tried to recall the plot of the book she had read before. If the name of her former hometown appeared, she would definitely have a deep impression of it. On second thought, this was the end of the story in the book. In the first book, not long after the original owner died, Fu Yun's father received the news and was unable to hold on. He was bedridden. The female lead rejected the male lead's marriage proposal again and again because of this. Later, Fu Yun's father was bedridden for more than 2 years and unfortunately passed away. Fang Shueruo and her mother struggled to support the Fu family. Half a year later, an accident happened, and Fang Shueruo had no choice but to get married. After that, it ended with a wedding of the century. The second book started when her daughter was 18 years old. The years in the middle were not within the scope of the book's plot. Fu Yunruo had checked and found that because her ending changed, the trajectories of other people also changed. Fu Yun's father did not show any signs of being seriously ill. From time to time, he would appear in public in high spirits. At this point in time, there was no description of Fang Shueruo participating in any variety show. Therefore, this should be a program that was not popular. Fu Yunruo did not take this matter to heart. Wen sat on Fu Yunruo's lap and swung her little legs from time to time. When she heard that the television station was going to film a program here, she immediately pricked up her ears and listened carefully. Which television station is it? Wen looked up and asked. Uncle Mai immediately said, Star TV station. Wen was deep in thought. Star TV station had already declined when he was in the entertainment industry. At this time, it should still be considered a little famous. Wen and Fu Yunruo were the same. They did not take it to heart, so they were also curious about which celebrities would be there. Anyway, even if he wanted to enter the entertainment industry in the future, it would be many years later. He was still a child now, so he had to enjoy the rights of a child. When Aunt Mai heard Uncle Mai's words, she immediately patted her thigh happily. Then, won't we be able to see a big star? Ayo, can we see Fang Er? Fang Er was the female lead of the most famous TV drama when they were young. She was still an active actress on the screen, but she usually played the role of a mother or grandmother. People of their age still like to call her by the name of Fang Er in the role. Maybe. Uncle Mai was not too sure. Ayo. I didn't expect that at my age, I could still learn to be fashionable. This is called chasing after celebrities, right? Aunt Mai smiled like a flower. Don't be happy too early. Uncle Mai said, there are so many towns in the county. They might not necessarily come to our place. It's not far to go to the other towns. Aunt Mai did not care at all. When the time comes, us old sisters will charter a car and go there directly. It won't take long. You old woman. Uncle Mai did not say anything in the end. In fact, he also wanted to take a look. Fang Er was not only the idol of these women when they were young, but also the idol of these men when they were young. However, he could not say it out loud. Otherwise, the old woman would definitely say that he was ugly and mischievous. How could he covet the goddess? Fu Yunruo looked at Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai and thought that they were really cute fans. Looking at the way the two of them interacted, she was envious in her heart. She did not know if she would be able to meet such a person who would accompany her for the rest of her life. Chapter 26. Fu Yun didn't livestream when she lived in the village. She had maintained this habit since half a year ago. Of course, because the two places were close, she would sometimes finish her livestream in the morning and go back after lunch. She wasn't idle in the village either. Sometimes, she would tidy up the yard a little and connect with the neighbors. It was said that distant relatives were not as good as close neighbors. Neighbors also had to interact frequently with each other so that their relationship wouldn't fade. Other than that, She had to deal with a lot of work matters. Now that Fu Yun's fame was at its peak, the platform arranged an assistant for Fu Yun after she became an A-lister. With her popularity, there were more things that came with it. Although the platform had a specialized department to help maintain it, Kai Wei-cheng suggested that she open a studio under the Panda platform. Some people's encounters were just different. If they were destined to be popular, they would be like fish in water no matter where they went. Kai Wei-cheng thought that she would become popular, but he didn't expect that she would achieve so much through live streaming. To be honest, it was much harder to stand out in the live streaming industry than in the entertainment industry. The number of people who could be considered A-listers in the live streaming industry could be counted with two hands. There were only a few people who were truly A-listers. In the entertainment industry, it was very common for a top celebrity to appear in 1 or 2 years. As for whether they could stabilize their position after they went up, at least 9 out of 10 of them would eventually fall, while one would barely maintain their A-lister position. Not everyone was like Sai Yu. In the past 10 years, only Sai Yu was an A-lister. After a movie became a top celebrity, not only did he not fall, but he also rose higher and higher. Others could only look up to him. At this time, it didn't matter if Fu Yun was in the entertainment industry or not. Kai Wei-cheng had already dispelled this idea. He suggested that Fu Yun set up her own studio. This would be beneficial for her future career development. This livestream was also very positive. Fu Yun also became the successor of the Orchid Arts Association. People who didn't understand this industry might not know. Tracing back, the discovery and maintenance of orchids predated the birth of writing. In later historical development, orchids became a symbol of literati and a symbol of spirituality. Even now, they were still sought after. The history of orchids could be said to have run through human history. In recent times, due to the extensive destruction of orchids, which almost led to their extinction, the country listed wild orchids in the protection law. Although Lan Yi was a relatively unpopular knowledge nowadays, if one had the luck, it would be impossible for it not to become popular. It was like one of the pillars of a live broadcast. It was a food broadcast. Every time it was broadcasted, there would be millions of people watching it online. Fu Yun was also considering the matter of the studio. After she became famous, there were more things to do. She needed a professional team to help her deal with her work. Kai Wei-cheng had given her a lot of useful suggestions. If Fu Yun had accepted all of them, she would have definitely invited Kai Wei-cheng to her studio if it wasn't for the fact that Kai Wei-cheng had no intention of changing jobs. Fortunately, Tian, the assistant that the platform had arranged for her in the livestream room, was very capable. Over the past few years, she had helped her manage the livestream room in an orderly manner. Their temperaments were also compatible, so she did not need to find someone else to manage it. Fu Yun Ruo and Tian finalized the regulations of the studio before ending the video call. A year ago, Tian had specially come to meet her during the holidays. After meeting each other, they had a good impression of each other. Their worldviews were also compatible, so they were now good friends and often video called each other. Fu Yun Ruo turned off her computer, stretched, stood up, and walked out. She did not know where the little guy had run off to play. Fu Yun Ruo looked around and then went to Aunt Mai's house. Aunt Mai's house was currently bustling with noise and excitement. A group of women were sitting there and chatting. When they saw Fu Yun Ruo, they hurriedly waved for her to come over. Fu Yun Ruo smiled and said, "Aunties, what are you talking about? Why is it so lively? We're talking about the TV station. Yes, our town is also within their filming range. I heard that they'll even come to our village. Sigh, I don't know if those big celebrities are as good-looking as our Ruo. Definitely not. I've never seen a girl more beautiful than Ruo on TV." These words caused a wave of agreement. Fu Yun Ruo waved her hand. "How can I compare to a celebrity?" She felt that their filter was too thick and then asked, "Will our village be coming too?" "Yes. The news has spread in the town. I heard that the TV station will donate to the local. No wonder so many people are fighting over it. Then won't we be able to get a share of the money?" "No way, it's for charity." Fu Yun Ruo listened to their discussion and heard the word donation. Her heart skipped a beat. Back then, after she had earned a certain amount of savings, she had also suggested to Aunt Mai to donate some money to do something for the village. However, Aunt Mai had rejected her suggestion. Although most of the people in the village were simple and honest, if they knew that you had a lot of money in your hands, it was inevitable that they would be jealous. They were orphans and widows, so it was even easier for them to be targeted. It was fine to do good deeds, but they could not put themselves in danger because of doing good deeds. It was difficult to hide secrets in a small place. Fu Yunruo's donation would undoubtedly tell others that she had a huge sum of money on her. Moreover, the location of this village was not good. Even if they built a road, a few million would only be able to build a section of the road. It was a big project to build all the roads that connected all the villages to the town and outside. Fu Yunruo did not have the funds to support this project. Fu Yunruo dismissed the idea at that time. Now that she thought about it, she might be able to donate in the name of the production team. This way, Aunt Mai and Uncle Mai would not have any worries. Aunt Mai said to Fu Yunruo, Ruo, our village still has a meeting at 7 p.m. It's on the ground at the entrance of the village. Remember to come then. Fu Yunruo nodded. Okay. What meeting was there at night? Fu Yunruo was quite curious. While the adults were chatting, the children were playing in the village. Their childish laughter spread far and wide in the village. Just as they were playing happily, a thin and small child walked over while crying. Behind him was an old man with a helpless expression. When saw her little brother crying, she immediately stopped in her tracks and walked over. She said sternly, Zhuang, why are you crying? Then, she looked at Zhuang's grandmother suspiciously. Could it be that she had hit Zhuang? Zhuang's grandmother said helplessly, he was just robbed of a candy. He has been crying until now and insisted on coming to look for you. Zhuang said aggrievedly, I specially brought that candy back for Wen. As he spoke, he opened his mouth and was about to continue crying. All right, don't cry, Wen said with a frown. Zhuang's crying immediately subsided. When Zhuang's grandmother saw this, she said kindly, then I'll leave Zhuang to you. Then, she left with a peace of mind. Zhuang was still sobbing. It took Wen a while to clarify what had happened. It turned out that Zhuang had gone to town with his grandmother today. His grandmother had bought 2 candies for him. He thought that they were very delicious and specially kept one to bring back for Wen to eat. However, on the way, it was snatched by a little tyrant from the neighboring village. He was very tall and strong. Zhuang did not dare to snatch it back and cried all the way back. When heard this, he was furious. He said domineeringly, just you wait, I'll get back at him for you. How could he sit back and do nothing when his little brother was being bullied? Zhuang immediately stopped crying. He looked at Wen with stars in his eyes. At this moment, he felt that Wen's image was extremely great in his eyes. Are we going to fight? Da Li, who had been paying attention to the commotion here, rubbed his palms together when he heard Wen's words. When children played, it was usually the children of the same village who played by themselves. They minded their own business with the children of other villages. Sometimes, they would even fight to occupy the place to play. Of course, most of them would play together. After all, most of their peers who were already in school were in the same class. Therefore, the children knew each other, whether directly or indirectly. Wen said, how can they be so violent? They were good children. How could they fight? Then, how are we going to get back at them? We have to be polite before resorting to force. Wen's expression was serious. First, we have to talk to them with emotion and then reason. The others were dumbfounded. They did not understand, but they felt that Wen knew a lot. Let's write a letter of challenge first and arrange a time to meet. We'll reason with them first. If they compensate us with the candy and apologize to Zhuang, this matter will be over. If they don't agree, then we'll fight, Wen said domineeringly. The other children nodded continuously. They understood. They were waiting for them to return the candy before fighting. Wen was amazing. In the past, when they fought, they would fight as soon as they met. Why would they care about being polite before resorting to force? Thinking back to the past, when they were robbed by the children of the neighboring villages, it would be best if they could get their things back. If they could not, they would only fight so that the other children would not dare to rob them again in the future. Who would have thought that they would have to compensate first? Da Li volunteered to write a letter of challenge. He was the oldest in the group of children. He was in the 6th grade of primary school and was the most literate among the children. Da Li wrote a letter of challenge and handed it to Wen Wen for review. The words on the letter of challenge were written crookedly. Some words that he did not know were written in pinyin. However, it was still a qualified letter of challenge. They sent a vanguard to deliver the letter of challenge and then arrived at the appointed location at the appointed time. Wen Wen looked around at the number of people on her side. The girls had all rushed back and were not allowed to participate. The main fighting force was the children between the ages of 8 and 10. Not long after, the other side brought more than 10 children. At first glance, the fighting strength of the two sides was about the same. The only biggest difference was the boss that they were escorting. The two armies confronted each other and were clearly separated. On their side, there was a white, short, and chubby child. On the other side, there was a strong, big child who was 1.6 meters tall. Are you the one who bullied my Zhuangzhuang? Wen Wen tried hard to put her hands on her chubby waist. Although she lost in terms of size, she did not lose in terms of aura. As long as you apologize to my Zhuangzhuang and compensate us with the candy, we will let bygones be bygones. Big Mountain did not understand the meaning of the last 4 words. However, he did snatch candy. Today, he did snatch candy from a little kid. Big Mountain was the leader of the children in the neighboring village. He was a 12-year-old child and had inherited the position of the previous boss after he graduated from junior high school. He lowered his head and looked at the little kid who did not have any power at all. He was short, small, and cute. She glared at him with her big, round eyes. She looked so cute and fierce. He only felt his heart beating rapidly. Using an idiom to express it, it was a blow to the heart. What an exquisite doll. Are you the boss of the neighboring village? This was the boss who had issued a challenge to him. Wen Wen proudly stuck out her little belly. Yes, that's me. Big Mountain looked at the beautiful little kid not far away and then looked down at his little brother who was of the same height. There was still snot under his nose and dirty chubby hands. After a moment, he lowered his head and lifted the chubby boy by his clothes. He walked to Wen Wen and placed the chubby boy in front of Wen Wen. Wen Wen? ? Did he feel that it was embarrassing for him to bully the young? Was that why he brought a kid of the same height over to duel with him? The next moment, Big Mountain lifted Wen Wen up and carried him by the waist. He turned around and walked away. Let's exchange. This little kid is yours and I want your boss. Wen Wen, who was being held by the waist with his face down and back up, was confused. All the children? One face was confused. 2 faces were confused. 3 faces were confused. When the children saw that their baby Wen Wen had been kidnapped by the enemy from the neighboring village, they were so angry that they immediately chased after him. Give Wen Wen back. Put Wen Wen down. Big Mountain ran quickly in front with Wen Wen in his arms. He thought to himself, this is the little brother I want. I have to hide him at home as soon as possible. When the children saw that their boss had snatched the other party's little boss and ran away, they also ran with him in confusion. On the other side, the children whose baby Wen Wen had been snatched away screamed and chased after him, wanting to snatch their Wen Wen back. The exchange item, Big Mountain's little brother, Xiao Shan, was left behind. He looked at the group of people running away, leaving him alone with a confused expression. After a moment, there was an earth-shattering cry. Chapter 27. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This child is too inconsiderate. In the farmhouse's courtyard, a sturdy woman brought a tall and strong child over and apologized profusely to the charming young woman opposite her. As she spoke, the woman slapped the back of Dashan's head. Hurry up and apologize to your auntie Ruoruo. Fu Yun's heart clenched when she heard the slap. She hurriedly said, it's okay, it's okay. The child is just playing around. It's a misunderstanding. I'm sorry, Sister Ruoruo. Dashan touched the back of his head and then grinned. Sister, I'll give my younger brother to you. Can you give Wen to my family as my younger brother? Fuyun, what nonsense are you spouting? The fat woman slapped him again. Also, call me auntie. Sister is so pretty. That's how you are. You brat. The slap on his shoulder made a loud thud. Fuyun almost couldn't help but stop him. Dashan was used to it. He pursed his lips and looked at the gentle and beautiful sister. He said casually, Mom, can you give me to Sister Ruoruo to be your son? Anyway, he wanted a beautiful younger brother. The one at home was dirty all day and loved to cry. How could he be as cute as Wen? I think you're asking for a beating. The woman was sure that Fuyun didn't care about Dashan's rudeness. She pulled her eldest son's ear and scolded him as she left. Fuyun sent the mother and son away. When she returned to the house, she saw Wen squatting in the corner. Wen was a small and round ball squatting in the corner. Hold it in. I can't laugh. Fuyun covered the corners of her mouth and walked over. All right, Wen, don't be unhappy. Brother Dashan has apologized to Wen. Wen will forgive Brother Dashan, right? Fuyun walked to the fat ball and squatted beside him. Then she hugged him. Our Wen is the best. Wen fell into a depressed mood. He buried himself in Fuyun's arms and twisted his small body awkwardly. He looked as if he was too ashamed to face anyone. It was too embarrassing. He was the big boss, but his position was snatched away by his opponent. How could he raise his head in front of his younger brother in the future? Fuyun looked at Wen's awkward look and thought of the whole story. She could not help but burst out laughing. Wen immediately looked up at her, her eyes full of condemnation. Poof. I'm sorry, baby. Mommy didn't mean it. Wen complained angrily, how could you hurt my young heart? He was already hurt enough, but his mother still laughed at him. Fuyun Ruo quickly pulled a straight face and admitted her mistake sincerely, it's Mommy's fault. Mommy shouldn't have laughed. Baby, can you forgive Mommy? Wen snorted loudly. After being coaxed for a while, she reluctantly expressed her forgiveness. Fuyun Ruo looked at Wen's proud expression and almost could not help but laugh again. Fuyun Ruo did not expect things to develop so dramatically at first. She was chatting with Aunt Mai and the neighbors when a few children ran over crying and said intermittently that Wen had been snatched away. At that time, she thought that he had been snatched away by human traffickers. She suddenly felt dizzy and almost fainted. Wen gradually grew up and could not lack playmates of the same age. The flower bed was relatively remote. Fuyun Ruo was not familiar with the people in the village next to the flower bed. When she stayed there, she basically did not go out and stayed in the flower bed. And the flower bed could not easily let outsiders in, especially children who were at the age of mischievous. Do not underestimate the destructive power of children. They were young and curious. Wherever they went, not even a blade of grass would grow. Therefore, every weekend, Fuyun Ruo would bring Wen back to the village to stay for 1 or 2 nights. Fuyun Ruo was very assured that Wen would run around the village with a group of children. As a semi-enclosed village where everyone knew exactly how many chickens the owner raised and how many ducks the owner raised, even an outsider would be able to discover it. The furry children running around the village were all related to each other. When the adults saw them, they would look at them together. The children here ran around everywhere. When it was time, they would come out from every corner. The children were very safe in the village. In the end, her Wen was snatched away. Fortunately, under the adults' questioning, the children gradually made things clear. It was a false alarm. Fortunately, it was a false alarm. The villagers almost called their friends to carry hoes and sticks to chase after the human traffickers. In the end, Fuyun Ruo went to the neighboring village with Aunt Mai and carried Wen back. No wonder the children in the village could not snatch her back. Dashan, the child who carried Wen away, ran home and closed the door. The group of children could not enter and cried outside the door. At that time, Wen and Dashan were staring at each other in the room. Fuyun Ruo really did not know whether to be angry or laugh. After returning, Wen seemed to have suffered a huge blow and had been squatting in the corner of the room. If this was the anime world, there would definitely be layers of dark clouds above his head. Even when Dashan's mother dragged Dashan over to apologize, Wen hid in the room and did not come out. Brother Dashan likes Wen very much and wants Wen to be his younger brother. However, Mommy will not give Wen away. Mommy loves Wen the most. Bao Bao is just too popular. Bao Bao is so cute, smart, and alert. He is also the little boss of the children. Wen is really too amazing. Wen was comforted by his mother's comforting and flattering words. His depressed mood finally dissipated. He blamed himself for being too popular. Sigh, he had to bear troubles that he should not bear at his age. In order to let Wen completely let go of this matter, Fu Yunruo quickly diverted Wen's attention. She brought him to a meeting at night to listen to the gossip. As the village chief, Uncle Mai presided over the meeting. The wide ground was crowded with adults and children. They spontaneously brought their benches over from home. They wore simple and cool short sleeves and fanned themselves as they sat on the low benches and listened to Uncle Mai's loud voice in front of them. The content of the speech was about the rules that the villagers had to follow when the TV station was filming the program. For example, during the filming period, the villagers were not allowed to go up to watch and affect the filming effect. The children had to be restrained from causing trouble. There were also various requirements to cooperate with the filming of the program. Each person had 5 pieces of paper densely filled with words. "Oh, then we can also be on TV?" The villagers discussed. "The program requires you to show reality and nature. You can do as you normally do and do what you are supposed to do. But there is one thing, you can't casually disturb others." The TV station rented a house in their village and the neighboring villages, a total of 4 villages, and lived together with the locals. Their Shanghe village also had a house. After discussion with the TV station, they rented Uncle Mai's house. When the time came, there would be celebrities living together. The villagers did not have any objections to this. In the village, only the village chief had the highest prestige. In the same village, they were all related. Other than his family, no one else would be convinced. How could such a good thing be given to their family? The most important thing is that after the TV station comes, there will definitely be many strangers coming to our place. You have to watch the children closely and not let them run around. Uncle Mai kept emphasizing the important matters and made sure that everyone remembered it in their hearts before announcing the end of the meeting. Aunt Mai was a little flustered. She pulled Fu Yunruo and said, "Sigh, I don't know if the big stars are easy to get along with. Will I not film well?" Fu Yunruo comforted her repeatedly. "It's okay, Aunt Mai. Just do as you usually do and treat them as juniors who are here to visit relatives." "Okay." When Fu Yunruo went back, she still thought, do those folk variety shows have to do so many things behind the scenes? However, this had nothing to do with her. When the time came, she and Wen would be in the garden. Early the next morning, Fu Yunruo was picking vegetables in the courtyard when she suddenly sensed that there seemed to be movement outside the courtyard. She opened the door and saw a child squatting on the ground, throwing stones out of boredom. "Big Mountain?" The child heard the movement and quickly stood up. He turned around and revealed a shy smile. "Sister Ruo." Fu Yunruo smiled. "Are you here to play with Wen?" Big Mountain touched the back of his head and stretched out his hand to Fu Yunruo. "Sister Ruo, stretch out your hand." Fu Yunruo stretched out her hand in confusion. Big Mountain put down Fu Yunruo's hand and turned around to run away quickly. His voice came from afar, "For little brother." Fu Yunruo looked down and saw 6 candies wrapped in glass paper in her palm. She looked up and saw that the little guy had already run away. Since it was an apology gift for Wen, she would leave it to Wen to handle. Thus, she took it into the house and gave it to Wen, telling her the origin of the candies. Wen took the candies and thought to herself, at least he knows what's good for him. He'll double the candies and apologize. He put the candies in a small bag and ran to look for Zhuang. The other party returned the candies. He had saved his face in front of his little brother. A Different Life was a variety show promoted by Star TV station. The content of the show was to show different careers and different lives. Each episode had a career theme. The guests would become relevant professionals and show people the different lives of different careers. There were also some missions and drama in the show. The purpose of the show was to give the audience a different life experience. At the same time, it also let the audience understand the difficulties of each career. In the beginning, this show only invited second-tier and third-tier celebrities. Unexpectedly, the first episode of the show became popular. The audience unexpectedly liked this kind of show. The 6 permanent guests became big shots because of this variety show. They had endless resources and became more and more popular. However, no matter how popular a show was, there would be times when it encountered a bottleneck. The variety show had reached this juncture. The program team was ruthless and paid a huge price to invite 2 heavyweight special guests. They also cooperated with Panda live streaming platform. This episode was presented in the form of a live broadcast, striving to be the most realistic representation. At the beginning of the show, the 6 permanent guests made a dazzling appearance. After throwing out a lot of laughs to warm up the audience, the first special guest was introduced. At the focus of the camera, a fair-skinned and beautiful woman in a white dress walked over. The warm breeze gently lifted the gauze dress, making her look like a fairy descending to the earth. The bullet screen on the screen instantly surged, and countless people excitedly commented, goddess. She's really a fairy descending to the earth. The permanent guests were surprised and amazed. It's Fang Shui-ruo. He Daosheng held his heart. Ah, goddess. My heart is about to jump out. Hua Cai suddenly said, if your heart jumps out, you won't be able to live. He Daosheng. Cai, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Hua Cai spread her hands. You say it as if it's not the truth if I don't say it. He Daosheng rolled his eyes at the sky. The bullet screen was filled with laughter. It was another day of being choked by the trolls. There's a beauty who came from the heavens. Ouyang Xingheng praised the beauty with a genteel poem. Hua Cai opened her mouth to speak again, but Ouyang Xingheng quickly grabbed her shoulder and covered her mouth with one hand. He continued to recite like a poet. Her face is like Wn Yang, her eyebrows are like distant mountains. Hua Cai. The audience burst into laughter again. Fang Shui-ruo smiled sweetly and walked to the front of the audience. She greeted the permanent guests and the audience in a friendly manner. Outside the scene, a black limousine was parked at the intersection. Inside the car, Yuanshin reminded him worriedly, this show is live. Remember to control your temper. The black car window was half lowered. Saiyu saw the first female guest and frowned. Saiyu clicked his tongue and smiled. Are you sure you want me to relax and not feel disgusted? Yuanshin also saw the female guest and was very surprised. From what I know, the special guest is not her. It was Xia Waning, whom he had worked with before. If he had known that it was Fang Shui-ruo, Yuanshin would not have agreed to this variety show. Although the industry was full of praise for Fang Shui-ruo and had a good impression of her, Saiyu did not like her. Yuanshin had also done some research and knew that this woman was not as kind as she appeared to be. Moreover, the company she worked for had always kept a respectful distance from her. It could only be said that the production team had changed the female guest at the last minute without informing them. Yuanshin frowned. He also did not expect Fang Shui-ruo to come to this show. It's my fault. Now that she was at the scene, he was afraid that her reputation would be damaged if she left. After all, this was a live broadcast. Yuanshin looked for the director to understand the situation. The production team's explanation was that something had happened to the special guest at the last minute. The production team had no choice but to invite Fang Shui-ruo to save the day. Yuanshin was not polite at all. The production team changed the guest at the last minute without informing us beforehand. Are you looking down on Best Actor Psy or Apple Entertainment? Director Peng smiled apologetically. No, it was too rushed. We just changed the female guest in a hurry this morning. We didn't have time to inform you in advance. Director Peng was helpless. How could they reject Fang Shuiruo? Although the industry knew that best actor Tsai did not like to be on the same stage as Fang Shuiruo, he could not afford to offend Fang Shuiruo, who was backed by the Fu family and the Chang family. Yuan Shin gave the production team a warning before letting it go. They could only do this. After all, the contract did not specify who the special guest was, so the production team did not violate the contract. Tsai Yu's public image was that of an approachable and modest person, but with her status, she was not easy to bully. They had to show their attitude and the production team had to consider carefully. Of course, Yuan Shin decided that he would never work with such a production team again. Just because Tsai Yu did not seem to have a strong background, they had to swallow their anger. The production team was really blind. They did not even know who they should not offend. In any case, Yuan Shin had already given them a warning. If the production team only wanted to boost Fang Shui for the sake of ratings, and if they crossed Tsai Yu's bottom line, then the production team would only have themselves to blame for what would happen in the future. While Yuan Shin was giving the production team a warning, Tsai Yu appeared on stage. When Tsai Yu appeared, her popularity exploded. The live broadcast platform's servers almost couldn't handle it. The guest area was even more lively. They had never imagined that the production team would invite such a big shot. They had really put in a lot of effort. After all, Tsai Yu had always kept a low profile and rarely participated in variety shows. As long as Tsai Yu participated in a variety show, it would definitely be a hit. Sure enough, the number of people watching the live broadcast surpassed the highest in history and even showed signs of increasing. Hua Cai also stopped arguing. She held her face and screamed. Tsai Yu. Am I seeing things? Is it really him? The others also turned into fans. They were really surprised. The production team was being mysterious this time. They did not even know who the special guest was. They only knew that it was a big shot. With Tsai Yu's participation, their show would definitely reach a higher level. The pros outweighed the cons. Welcome, welcome, a warm welcome. They tacitly raised their hands and waved non-existent ribbons. Tsai Yu strode down the aisle with his long legs. It was as if he was walking on a catwalk, attracting the attention of everyone. He smiled and greeted them in a friendly manner. Hello, everyone. Then he greeted the camera. Hello, everyone. Chapter 28. A Different Life was one of the most popular variety shows in recent years. With the addition of 2 big stars in the latest episode, it had become the most popular variety show of the year. The theme of this episode was a return to the garden. It mainly focused on leisure and traveling and doing some simple tasks. The reason was that the guests had worked hard after filming so many episodes, so this episode was mainly for them to relax. Of course, this was what the guests were told. Given the nature of the production team, they definitely wouldn't let them relax so easily. After the guests officially met and exchanged greetings, they got into the production team's car and headed to their destination. 5 cars of the same model drove in the same direction in a row, followed by several smaller cars. It was quite a spectacular sight. There were 2 guests in each production team's car. Tsai Yu and the big brother of the permanent guests, He Ling, sat together. Although He Ling wasn't as famous as Tsai Yu, he was the big brother of the entertainment industry. After noticing Tsai Yu's easygoing attitude, he chatted with her very naturally. There were 6 permanent guests in the show. 2 special guests would be invited every episode to film for half a month. The big brother of the permanent guests, He Ling, was a veteran actor. He was 48 years old this year and was elegant, mature and steady. The second brother, Ouyang Xingheng, was the IQ of the group. He was humorous and liked to tell cold jokes seriously. He and the 4th brother, Xin Shu, were in the same car. The journey was long, and the 2 bored people in the car were seriously cracking lame jokes to see who would make the other laugh first. The 2 of them were cross-eyed, but they didn't make the other party laugh first. Instead, they made the audience laugh. The 3rd brother, He Daosheng, was an entertainment star who made his debut through live streaming. He sat together with the 5th brother, Wang Huaibei, who had a straightforward personality. They had endless topics to talk about. The sixth brother, Hua Cai, was the only girl in the group. She sat together with the special guest, Fang Shueruo. Fang Shueruo chatted with Hua Cai in an easygoing manner. In the end, she was always choked by Hua Cai, who was like the reincarnation of a bar spirit. Fang Shueruo's snowball fans felt their hearts ache. They began to criticize Hua Cai in the comments section for deliberately embarrassing their Shueshue and bullying the guests. Hua Cai also had a lot of fans. Everyone loved to watch her talk about other people. When they saw Fang Shueruo's fans attacking their own idol, the Rainbow fans couldn't take it anymore and quickly retaliated. Although Hua Cai's fans were not as many as Fang Shueruo's fans, their fans followed their idols. They were all like reincarnated trolls, and they were not at a disadvantage even though they were outnumbered. In the end, due to the bumpy road, Fang Shui seemed to be suffering from motion sickness and seemed to be in a lot of pain. This caused the snowballs to flood the bullet screen with heart-wrenching comments, but the fight was not as bloody as it seemed. At the beginning of the show, the location of the live broadcast was the county town where they were heading to. However, it was still a 5 to 6 hour drive away from where they were going. The car swayed as it traveled along the mountain road. Wang Huaibei looked at the wilderness outside the car window and said worriedly, "Is the production team trying to sell us out?" He Daosheng said calmly, "What's there to be afraid of? If they want to sell us out, they should sell Brother Yu first." Wang Huaibei nodded seriously. That makes sense. After a long journey, they arrived at a town that had not been baptized by industry. The streets and buildings in the town gave people the feeling that they were dusty and old. It was not as bright and beautiful as a big city. The streets were quite lively, and there were stalls and shops on both sides. At a glance, there was a dazzling lineup. The people had simple smiles on their faces. When they saw a group of strangers with different styles, they looked over curiously. However, they did not approach them. Instead, they stood and watched from afar. They curiously discussed, "Is that a big star? Ayo, that young man looks so energetic. I know him. That's the great emperor of all ages." At first glance, most of the people on the street were old and young. There were almost no young people. The older people were not so fashionable as to chase after celebrities. Most of them did not like to watch the youth idol dramas that young people watched. They only liked to watch anti-Japanese war dramas and popular dramas of their time. When they watched TV, they only remembered the roles of the actors and did not know their real names. The only one that left a deep impression on them was Sai Yu, who had played the historical drama of the great emperor of all ages from his youth to his old age. As for the others who looked familiar, they had only seen them in advertisements. It took them a long time to remember their names. However, some young boys and girls screamed in excitement when they saw this group of famous stars. Soon, the program team brought over a lottery box. The program team found 4 villages to stay in. 2 people were in a group and they drew lots to form teams. The guests had been wary of the program team causing trouble, but they did not expect the program team to be so obedient and not do anything funny. The guests could not help but think, is the program team so conscientious this time? Did they really just let them come to the countryside for a vacation? Ladies first. They let the special guest, Fang Shui, be the first to draw lots, followed by Fang Cai. After that, it was Sai Yu. The others also went up to draw lots in order. Everyone received a folded card with the program team's logo on the cover. He Daosheng clasped his hands together and muttered, "Heaven and earth, please bless me and my goddess." Then, he closed his eyes and held his breath. His left eye quietly opened a crack and he nervously opened the card. Xiao Ao Village. Then, he looked at Fang Shui expectantly. The permanent guests all wanted to be in the same group as the special guests and opened their cards expectantly. Hua Cai took a look and opened her card. "It seems that God did not hear your prayers." He Daosheng. The two of them looked at each other and gave each other a look of disdain. He Ling asked Ouyang Xingheng, "Where are you from?" "I'm from Dao Village." Ouyang Xingheng was happy. "What a coincidence." "Me too." He teased, "It seems that we are in the same group." There were still 4 people who had not opened their cards. They were Xin Shu and Wang Huaibei. That meant that the two of them had a 2/3 chance of being in the same group as Sai Yu or Fang Shui. Xin Shu excitedly opened his card first. Shanghe Village. Xin Shu clasped his hands together and said in his heart, Sai Yu, Sai Yu, Sai Yu. Fang Shui looked at Sai Yu with a smile and teased, I wonder if I will be in the same group as Brother Yu. Sai Yu smiled faintly and opened her card. Shanghe Village. Sai Yu's card had the words Shanghe Village, my family written on it. Below it was an address. Yeah. Xin Shu jumped up. Sai Yu said regretfully, it seems that I won't have the honor. Fang Shui's smile didn't change. She looked at Wang Huaibei and smiled. I'm happy to be in the same group as Huaibei. Wang Huaibei smiled. I'm happy too. Director Peng wiped his sweat and pretended that he didn't see Fang Shui's expression. He thought that he couldn't afford to offend the Fu family and the Chang family, but he also couldn't afford to offend Sai Yu, who was backed by Apple Entertainment. Director Peng said through the loudspeaker, you have already decided where you want to go. Next, you will have to find a place to stay in the village. Each of the men had one suitcase, while the two women had 2 large suitcases. It was summer and they were all wearing summer clothes. The filming of the show would last for half a month, so the men were more casual. The women, on the other hand, had to bring skincare products and so on. Fang Shui had 2 suitcases and was worried about how to carry them. Wang Huaibei helped her carry them in a gentlemanly manner. Apart from that, each of them only had a maximum of 100 yuan. Hey, how do we get to Xiao Ao village? He Daosheng mumbled. Should we ask someone? After splitting into groups, they quickly dispersed and went to the village on their own. Brother Yu, are we going too? Xin Shu stood beside Sai Yu. He was a little nervous talking to his idol. Sai Yu was tall and straight. He carried the suitcase and looked around. No hurry. Let's walk around first. Thus, Sai Yu leisurely strolled around the streets. Xin Shu carried the suitcase and followed behind, looking very obedient. He looked left and right curiously. Sai Yu strolled around the streets and bought a bag of candy, 2 bags of fruit, a bag of bananas and a bag of apples with 100 yuan. The prices here were relatively low, but he bought enough. After paying 100 yuan, he didn't have much left. In the end, he only had 20 yuan left. After asking for the location of the bus, they found a car to take them to their destination. When the driver saw this group of strangers, he looked at them curiously. He was a little reserved at first, but the energetic young man spoke to him warmly and didn't put on any airs. After a while, the middle-aged driver let go of his reservations and chatted with Sai Yu. Fang Shui and Wang Huaibei had already arrived at Xiahe village. Fang Shui walked in the village and looked at the filthy environment by the roadside. She frowned slightly with her back facing the camera, but quickly smoothed out. When the camera turned to her, her eyes were smiling. Not long after, a group of filthy children looked at Fang Shui and Wang Huaibei as if they were monkeys. The children in the countryside didn't have many restrictions. During the holidays, they would go out and run around. In the morning, they were clean when they went out, but not long after, they were all dirty. When they saw the strangers in the village, they were very curious. However, they had been instructed by the adults not to get close to the strangers, so they just looked at them from afar. Fang Shui laughed. It's weird to be looked at like that. I feel like an animal in the zoo. Wang Huaibei laughed. They're looking at you because you're pretty, Shui Ruo. To be honest, Fang Shui's appearance wasn't the most outstanding in the entertainment industry. However, she was as bright as the bright moon and her untainted temperament made her 8 out of 9 out of 10. Fang Shui waved her hand and said, I'm just average. You don't believe me? Wait, I'll go ask. Children are the worst at lying. After Wang Huaibei finished speaking, he looked at the children and tried to speak kindly. He waved at a child in the crowd and said, Child, come here. The children took a step back and looked at each other. Then, they stared at them with wide eyes. Wang Huaibei saw that the children didn't want to come over and thought that they were afraid of strangers. He didn't force them. Instead, he said, Children, don't you think this big sister Shui Ruo is the prettiest? The children stared at Fang Shui for a long time. Then, a young child's voice said, "Big sister Ruo Ruo is the prettiest." Wang Huaibei looked at Fang Shui proudly. "Am I right?" The children's eyes are as bright as snow. The live broadcast room was filled with comments praising the beauty of the goddess. Fang Shui's lips curled up. Being praised always made one feel better. "It's big sister Ruo Ruo, not her," a small voice retorted. Wang Huaibei and Fang Shui immediately looked over. The little girl who spoke immediately hid behind her friends and timidly revealed her eyes. The big boy in front of the little girl held his head high proudly. "You're not as pretty as big sister Ruo Ruo." His words caused a wave of agreement. Big sister Ruo Ruo is the prettiest. Fang Shui's smile froze. A village girl compared to her? Her name was so similar to hers. The live broadcast room was filled with laughter. "That's right. The children's eyes are as bright as snow. Yes, yes, yes. The children are the worst at lying. This is the fastest scene I've ever seen. Let me tell a joke. The most beautiful goddess is not as pretty as a village girl." There were also anti-fans of Fang Shui in the live broadcast room. At this moment, they were mocked, but they were quickly covered up by the comments of the fans. Many of the fans said that the children had never seen the world and didn't know anything. They even mocked how beautiful a village girl could be. Wang Huaibei's expression was a little awkward. He didn't think that the children would be so rude. If it was recorded, it could be edited out, but this was a live broadcast. The children seemed to sense that the atmosphere wasn't right and immediately dispersed. Wang Huaibei laughed dryly. "The children are still young." Fang Shui smiled indifferently and said gently, "It's okay." Then she changed the topic. "We're almost there, right?" Yes. At this moment, Sai Yu and Xin Shu were in a car heading to Shanghe village. "Hey, is there such a poor place nowadays? Looking at them trekking through mountains and rivers, I feel like I'm living in a different world." The audience who lived in the big cities all year round always felt that it was very far away from them, even though there were often charity projects that said that they were helping the children in the mountains and helping people get out of the mountains. Now that they were watching the live broadcast, they could feel it with their own eyes. When the celebrities arrived in town, they thought that it was already remote enough. They didn't expect that the place they were going to was even more remote. Especially when the live broadcast room explained that this place wasn't the most remote place. There were many more places that were even more remote. It was more than half an hour's journey from town to their destination on a three-wheeled motorcycle. They went around a mountain road and entered a village in the mountains. When they were there, they could see mountains all around them. The villages were most densely clustered in the large, flat col between the mountains. It was said that some villages were built halfway up and at the foot of the mountains. Xiaogao village was on the mountainside, and one of the groups was going to this village. Some of them had never left this place in their lives. Most of them had gone out when they were young, but in the end, they returned to their hometown to retire when they got older. Life is much better now. In the past, before the road was built, we could only walk over the mountains to get to town. The government's policies are good. Since the road was built, it's much more convenient for us to travel. The distance has also been reduced by more than half. A bridge was built halfway up the two mountains to connect the two sides. It was about 500 meters long, so people didn't have to walk to the bottom of the mountain to continue walking. Unfortunately, their place was too remote. Even if the road was built, it wouldn't be of much use. People and cars didn't have to pass through here. There was nowhere to go, and there was nothing worth investing in the mountains. The only comforting thing was that the environment hadn't been destroyed. The air was fresh, and it was very comfortable when the wind blew on their faces. The driver sent them to the entrance of Shanghe village and enthusiastically helped to unload their luggage. Walk along this path for a while, then turn right. The third building is the My Family's house. Thank you, brother. Sai Yu paid the fare, then carried their luggage and walked in the direction the driver pointed. Xin Shu sighed. Brother Yu, you're amazing. You can talk so much with uncle. If it were me, I wouldn't know what to say. Their relationship instantly became closer. If they hadn't insisted on paying the fare, they would have waived the fare. Sai Yu's attitude was gentle. You're still young. You can learn slowly. The two of them walked one after another to the front of a farmhouse. Shin-shu tried to look up. They would be staying in the house for half a month. His heart relaxed, and his face was full of surprise. It looks good. He thought that in such a remote area, their living conditions would be worse. He didn't expect it to be so good. It was a 2.5-story house with ceramic tiles on the outside and a large yard. It was neatly maintained and looked clean and tidy. The production team really did something this time. Shin-shu believed that the production team really allowed them to take a vacation. Sayu didn't say a word. The yard door was ajar. Sayu didn't directly push the door open. Instead, he knocked on the door. "Come in." A loud voice came from inside. Sayu pushed the door open and entered. A benevolent-looking woman came out of the house. When she saw the two of them enter, her eyes lit up. She said warmly, "Oh, you're finally here. Welcome, welcome." Sayu said warmly, "Hello, Auntie. I'm Sayu. You can call me a you." Shin-shu also greeted her politely. "Hello, Auntie. I'm Shin-shu. You can call me Xiao-shu. A you, Xiao-shu. You can call me Auntie Mai." Auntie Mai looked at the two young men and warmly invited them into the house. "Don't just stand in the yard. Come in and rest." Auntie Mai looked at the house full of people and smiled warmly. She had been very nervous in front of Yun Ruo. Now that she was facing them, Auntie Mai was able to stand her ground. She completely treated Sai Yu and Shin Shu as her nephews who had come to visit her family. She didn't feel uncomfortable at all. "Auntie Mai, this is a little gift from us." Sai Yu placed 2 big bags of fruits on the table. "You're already here. Why did you buy fruits?" Auntie Mai said angrily and smiled even more warmly. Sai Yu's attitude was modest and friendly. "It's my duty. I'll have to trouble Auntie Mai and Uncle Mai to take care of us during this period." Auntie Mai's smile became even brighter. She brought the two of them to the 2nd floor. "There's only me and the old man at home. We'll stay on the 1st floor. If there's anything, you can look for me and the old man. This is my son's room. These 2 rooms are empty. You can stay here for the time being." Auntie Mai only had one son. When they built the house, they didn't build much. There were only 2 rooms on the 1st floor. One was for the 2 old men and the other was for storing miscellaneous items. There were only 3 rooms on the 2nd floor. After her son got married, they would be more well off. When they arrived, it was already evening. The guests had a relaxing night and had a sumptuous farmhouse dinner. Just as they were about to spend the day relaxing, a mission card was presented to them. The nearby villages became lively because of the celebrity's arrival. Everyone excitedly went to watch and discuss from afar. However, they lost interest in less than 2 days. The celebrity also had 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. After looking at her for a long time, there wasn't anything special about her. Furthermore, she was clumsy when it came to household chores and farm work. If she lived in a village, she wouldn't even be able to support herself. Furthermore, they couldn't even recognize the crops, which made them a laughingstock. Compared to the bustling outside, the flowerbed was as quiet as ever. Fu Yunruo wanted to take a look at the celebrities who came here to film the show to see if they looked familiar, but she realized that her eldest brother's flowerbud seemed to have mutated. For this reason, Fu Yunruo devoted all her energy to her eldest brother. Fu Yunruo's initial live broadcast of planting flowers was to cultivate mutated orchids. But later, she changed to planting more than 10 orchids. However, she never gave up on the idea of inducing mutation and tried it during the cultivation process. Unfortunately, Laro Wu and Laro Chi did not mutate even when they fully bloomed. The other few orchids also did not show any signs of mutation. Only the eldest brother's lotus petal orchid, Fu Yunruo, was keenly aware of the difference. To be cautious, she carefully observed it for 3 days. After confirming that it had indeed successfully mutated, she called Uncle Guo with a trembling voice. The moment Uncle Guo walked in, Fu Yunruo said excitedly, "Uncle Guo, can you see if the lotus petal orchid has mutated?" Even though she already had the answer in her heart, Fu Yunruo still wanted Uncle Guo to confirm it again. Uncle Guo carefully observed for a while before straightening up. He said with relief, "It has indeed mutated." Fu Yunruo was so excited that her face turned red. She had actually succeeded in cultivating it. Take good care of it. Uncle Guo walked out of the greenhouse with his hands behind his back. His footsteps were much lighter. As soon as he left the greenhouse, Uncle Guo could not help but immediately take out his phone to call his nemesis. "Hello, old Mo." Fu Yunruo stayed in the greenhouse for a while before she could not sit still and went to look for her son. At this moment, Wen was wearing a cute straw hat and was tossing around in the vegetable field. This straw hat was specially made for Wen by Uncle Mai. It was very suitable for her to wear and was not heavy. The brim of the hat could also block most of the sunlight. Under the exquisite little hat, her small face was flushed red and looked even more exquisite and cute. Wen Ruo felt that she would be causing trouble if she helped to take care of the flowers, so she decided to help take care of the vegetable field. He saw that the vegetables in the vegetable field were wilted and the ground was so dry that it was cracking, so he used the water pipe to fetch water over. He turned on the tap and used the sprinkler to water the vegetable field. The sky full of water mist sprayed above the vegetable field. He saw that the water vapor seemed to refract colors in mid-air and wondered if there would be a rainbow. Then he turned the sprinkler to the highest point in the sky. Fu Yunruo came out and saw her son playing with water happily. She hurriedly went over to turn off the tap. "Didn't Mommy say that you're not allowed to play with water?" Fu Yunruo squatted in front of Wen and slapped his chubby little butt. "Little mischievous brat." Wen widened his eyes and had a sad and indignant expression on his face. "I'm not playing with water," he shouted. "I'm watering the vegetables." Fu Yunruo turned her head and saw that the vegetable field was wet. It was obvious that she had watered too much. God, could these vegetables still survive? Yes, baby is the most obedient. Mommy has wronged baby. Mommy is wrong. Fu Yunruo touched his little clothes. They were a little damp, so she carried him into the house and prepared to change his clothes for him. Mommy knows that baby wants to help Mommy, but the next time you want to water the vegetables, you have to ask Mommy to help you. Wen hugged Fu Yunruo's neck. "All right, on account of your sincere apology, I'll forgive you for spanking my butt." After Wen changed his clothes, Fu Yunruo happily shared with Wen about the mutated orchids that she had planted. Wen was also very happy when he heard that. Then, when he heard Fu Yunruo say that she wanted to spend more time taking care of the orchids, he tilted his head and suddenly thought of something. "Then aren't we going back to the village?" "Ah." Fu Yunruo thought that Wen would definitely miss her little friend after not seeing her for a long time, so she nodded and said, "Yes." Wen said considerately, "Mommy, you have something to do first. I can play here." Fu Yunruo heard her son's childish words and hugged him emotionally. "It's okay. Mommy still has time to accompany baby. Baby is the most important." At this moment, Uncle Guo walked in and said, "You do your thing. I'll bring Wen over." They would send him over in the morning and pick him up in the afternoon. There would be no delay. Fu Yunruo thought about it and agreed. Wen had so many little friends and elders in the village, so she couldn't be more at ease. Uncle Guo would send him over in the morning and she would pick him up in the evening. There wouldn't be much delay on the way. Therefore, the next day, Uncle Guo wanted to bring Wen back to the village. Wen thought that he hadn't seen his little brothers for a while and that he could play with them while his mother was busy during the day. Therefore, after confirming that his mother would come to pick him up in the evening, he happily agreed. Uncle Guo drove the small tram to send Wen back to the village. As soon as the tram arrived at the entrance of the village, Wen saw his group of little friends. As soon as the tram stopped, he quickly climbed out of the tram and ran towards his little friends. "Grandpa, I'm going to play," Uncle Guo responded. He had something to do in the village, so he didn't go back. Instead, he went to another place. Wen successfully met up with his little friends. Zhuang, little Shitu, and the others were happy to see Wen. The group of little friends quickly played together. They were playing hide and seek. Wen couldn't think of anything else to play at the moment, so he played along. Wen knew that there was a hiding place that ordinary people couldn't find unless they walked out on their own. Therefore, he definitely wouldn't be caught. Wen hurriedly ran away with his short legs and quickly avoided everyone. Then, he hid under a wooden board behind a haystack in the old house. He only needed to estimate the approximate time to get out. Next time, he could continue to hide here. Wen thought that he was really too smart. Every time, his little brothers couldn't find where he was. He was the only one who hadn't been found. They all looked at him with admiration. Wen waited and waited. Before the time came, he heard a sound from outside. Wen held his breath and unconsciously widened his eyes. His secret base had been discovered. The next moment, the wooden board was lifted and a low voice with a smile was heard. "Oh, look, what did I find?" A slender hand reached over and grabbed his clothes from the back, lifting him up easily. "Whose little cutie is this?" A handsome face appeared in front of him. Wen's eyes suddenly widened. Sigh you. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.